Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of Reddit Podcast Stories, where today, my Karen sister volunteers me to babysit my neighbor's kids. I, 22 female, have a sister who's 26 who's going away this weekend with her husband who's 40 for a little getaway, which will be their first time since having their son, who's 1. So my sister came over to visit today and she brought my nephew. She was going to be here for about 2 hours or so, and my sister saw my next door neighbors. My sister spoke to my neighbor and said that she and her husband are going away for the weekend, so my nephew is going to be staying here with me for the weekend, and it's his first time without his parents. My neighbor, who has 3 kids and a husband herself, mentioned she's also going away this weekend, as she's going to see a friend and she's looking for a babysitter also. My sister actually told my neighbor that her kids could come stay next door with me since I'm already babysitting my nephew. Here's the thing, my neighbor's husband will be home, and he has the weekend off, and they're his kids. When I found out my sister said the neighbor's kids were coming over, I said they were not. I only agreed to babysit my nephew. My sister thinks I'm being harsh and selfish, and she thinks because I'm child-free, that's why I'm being so rude about not wanting to babysit my next-door neighbor's kids. However, if next door asked me, it would still be a no, because the dad will be home and he can watch them. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. The nerve of your sister. I would have told her to go tell the neighbor the answer is no immediately, or I would hand her kid back to her and not ever offer to babysit again. Not the jerk. It sounds like their dad will be home. He needs to parent his own kids. She volunteered you without consulting you. There's a huge difference between just a 1-year-old and 4 kids total. And if your sister is that pressed for someone to watch your neighbor's kids, she can do it for them when she gets back in town. My parents are kicking me, 18 male, out. My stepdad claims I've done nothing with my life and I have no direction. My parents divorced at an early age. My stepdad was strict, but he was a good father. I'm the oldest. Due to lockdown, I didn't go to college this year. I skipped it, and rightfully so, as I have health issues. I'm taking classes online. I don't work and haven't for at least 2 weeks. I left my job at GameStop after they stopped giving me hours and they weren't promoting me. My stepdad came in while I was finishing up some coursework. He told me I had 2 weeks to get out or he was forcing me out. I asked him why, and he says I have no direction, no goal. I'm doing nothing with my life. I'm 18. You can't seriously expect me to figure my life out. But he disagrees and claims, yes, I should have a good idea what I want. He says that a parent's job is done after I turn 18. All I do is play video games. I don't have girls over, no friends. We're in a lockdown. I only go out to work. Buzz off. I'm wasting away inside when I should be doing more. I told him I was looking for a better full-time job that had a good career path, and I was taking online classes. I even offered to pay rent. He said no. From his point of view, I'm wasting away, and he won't allow me to become a loser. Adversity brings innovation and strength, and life will be hard, but he knows that I will look back and thank him one day. I don't know what else to do. I feel like he thinks I'm worthless. I spent a lot of time inside last year for good reasons. We're in a lockdown. I don't want anything to happen to me. Am I being unreasonable? My dad says yes. Yes, I am. I just don't know what to do. This isn't really just him. My mom mostly goes along with what he says, but I don't know. How can I convince her to convince him to let me stay? Or is my dad justified? Am I a loser for not having any plans past 18? Your parents have zero obligation to support you. What, so I'm just supposed to dump them and hope for the best at 18? I won't take care of you when you're old by that logic. You failed to consider them and just presumed that you could stay there indefinitely without even asking them. Then you didn't go to college. Then you quit your job. Speaking as a parent, that's what set your dad off. OP, you didn't read. I went to online classes. I guess this lockdown doesn't even exist to you, does it? I forget. You morons always act as if it isn't real. Your reasons for avoiding college and quitting your job don't sound particularly strong. OP, you're a moron. Go figure. A lockdown isn't enough. I'd rather not get sick and possibly not make it. I've already had a friend pass. Don't know why that's not a good enough reason. Without another job to replace it, you just sound entitled. OP, you don't read, do you? I left because I was going nowhere and getting no hours. I'll give you no job lined up, but buzz off. I made a mistake. I didn't realize it was my first job. Not everyone is perfect like you. I wanted something more hours, not 8 to 12 hours a week. That's nonsense. I was only making barely anything. It was my first job. You're a super jerk. You're probably making yourself look a little better in this interaction, and fair enough. By your own description, this is in character for your stepdad, and he's likely trying to help you and motivate you. If I had to guess, he's probably tried to give you advice and direction, but is maybe thinking you just want the free ride. Don't give up hope. If they've been good to you this far, work with them to find your path. Life can be so much easier not doing it alone with your family's support and resources of time, money, and experience. Put aside your video games and see if they want to spend more time together where you can discuss these things naturally and let them feel like they're a part of your life and you value their opinions. Just some thoughts to see if anything rings true. OP. I got advice. Work harder and never settle for less. I was tired of so little hours at GameStop. I begged, I busted my tail, and got no reward. No thanks. Nothing but more cut hours. So, he says all you do is play video games. How close is this to the truth? You eventually need to become a productive member of society who is financially self-sufficient. Your parents should reinforce that. You should be working or else training for a job or getting educated, or both. You just quit a job with no better job to move into. Bad idea. Are you spending 40 hours a week looking for another one? If not, start doing this now. 60 hours a week if you're in danger of being kicked out. Generally, the rule is, don't quit a job until you have a better one. It's okay if you don't know what you want to train for at 18. In that case, work minimum wage jobs until you figure it out. Then take classes to get that job. If you can afford it, go to college. A satisfying high-wage job with great promotions is not going to fall into your lap. See if you can get a job and stay at home. Trying to live independently is no joke. Living in a shelter will get everything you have stolen, even your shoes. Don't go there. OP. It is true. In my defense, it's miserable. I'm not used to being indoors, but this lockdown has made everything so bad. My area is just horrible. I'm so afraid to really risk my life. I risked my life working at GameStop, and now I had my shot, so I'm not as afraid. But yeah, I have underlying health issues, and I'm afraid of getting sick. I guess that makes me a failure. I realize I should risk my life to make money. Update. I lied. Okay, I'm sorry, Reddit. I admit I lied. I know the reason and always have. It's the same reason my parents divorced. My anger issues. It's the reason why I quit my job. I got angry and stormed out without really being a mature adult about it. My parents see the writing on the wall, and they see that it's only getting worse. I confronted my mom, and after a shouting match, she came up to my room and tearfully told me, "This is why we want you gone. You can't control your anger and it scares us." I fly off the handle at the slightest provocation. When I play games, I get super game rage, and I destroy things. I do have a habit of breaking things. Stepdad told me they'll let me stay if I get help and prove that I can control my anger. He thinks maybe if I have direction or goals, I can manage my anger. But I have to prove that I can. Until I do, I have to get out. They're afraid of me. They're afraid of my anger, and they don't know what else to do. They've tried talking to me before. They can't afford therapy. They just hope that it would go away. But it hasn't, and frankly, it's getting much worse. I don't disagree. I exploded in rage on someone last thread. I got so mad that I broke my keyboard in rage. Over what? A comment I didn't like. Don't even ask what I did when they initially told me I was being kicked out. But yeah, I have anger issues, and I don't know how to control them. I'm sorry for the deception. I just didn't want to admit that I have anger problems. I still see myself as innocent. I know deep down I messed up, but my emotions say otherwise. Emotional self-control is one of the hardest things to teach someone, especially if it's not taught when they're young. I know someone with anger issues. Luckily, his parents had the means to get him into therapy when he was a preteen, and that helped him get a handle on things. I can only imagine how difficult it is for both OP and his parents. I know what it feels like when it seems your emotions are controlling you and not the other way around, as I assume most of us have at one point or another. I hope he's able to get a handle on things, but I know it's not that easy and not likely something he'll be able to do on his own. Well, that's it. No good boy points for you. No tindies for you. With intense gamer rage like this, no wonder they're kicking you out. Something tells me you spend a lot of time on Discord and drinking high fructose-laden carbonated beverages. Am I the jerk for going to my sister's dream school when she just got rejected? So I got into Cornell last week. Honestly, I thought it was a fluke. I'm not smart at all. I got a 28 ACT, a decent GPA, because my school grade inflates considerably. I had some decent extracurriculars, but nothing remotely competitive enough to get me into a school at Cornell. But anyways, my twin sister is the opposite of me. She's a genius. She has way more impressive stats, 34 ACT, and she only took it once, compared to my 3 times. She has way better grades, way cooler extracurriculars. Everyone always looked up to her as the smart one. I didn't and still don't mind, it's true. The only reason I can fathom I got in and she didn't is that she applied to the engineering college while I applied to arts and sciences. I don't know if too many of you guys are familiar with Cornell, but they have a bunch of different colleges you can apply to, each with their different admission criteria. Well, last week, decisions for Ivies came out. Unfortunately for my sister, she didn't get into a single one, including her first choice, Cornell. She checked as soon as it was available and called me bawling. I consoled her and told her everything was going to be okay, that who cares what school you go to, that she was brilliant and was going to be successful no matter where she goes. Well, anyways, I pretty much resolved that I was getting rejected, so I didn't even bother to look at my email until later that night. Well, I guess surprises do happen sometimes, because I'm a Cornellian. I got in. I just don't know how, but I did. I really want to go, but this would devastate my sister. All week she's been crying and solemn and sad. She's been angry at her friends who got into top schools, especially the ones with lower stats. She's decided to go to NYU, but she just hasn't been herself. I haven't told our parents. I think they assumed I didn't get in because she didn't. Am I being selfish? Should I just go with her to NYU? We always thought we were going to go to school together, but it's Cornell. I couldn't in a million years imagine that I'd get in. I've been researching obsessively about it, and I can't shake the desire that if I don't go, I'll regret it. Ithaca looks beautiful. It's a small town, which I would love to get away with from the huge city that is New York. It seems like a dream opportunity. Am I being a bad sister? I know she would be upset. We were supposed to go to school together. It would crush her. I really don't have anyone else to talk to. Am I the jerk for going to her dream school, especially considering how much harder she's worked compared to me? Update. So everyone told me that I should go, so I decided to tell my sister. Well, she started screaming from excitement and got, not actually, mad that how couldn't I tell her earlier, and she's so proud of me. But seconds later, her excitement just turned to sadness. She went from super giddy to depressed in seconds, and she started bawling, uncontrollably bawling. I tried to comfort her, but she pushed me away and locked herself in our room. I'm going to give her some alone time right now, and we can talk more about it later. Update 2. So my sister sent me a text, and it said, "I'm sorry for how I reacted. Please don't be mad. I'm so happy for you and your accomplishments. It's just that after I got rejected, I at least had the consolation that I get to go to school with you and we can be together. But now you're going to where I wanted to be, and I'm just so sad. I worked so hard and did everything I could to go to the best school I can, and I just feel like all my hard work was just wasted effort. I'm sorry I'm ranting. I just need more time." I'm not going to lie. When I read this, I cried. A lot of you are saying that I obviously must have attributes that made me desirable, but I really don't. I don't deserve my acceptance. I did my homework between classes, barely studied for anything, took the easiest AP classes available, etc. Meanwhile, I see my sister always taking the hardest classes, studying as hard as she can, always volunteering. She deserves it, not me, and seeing her so hurt pains me. I'm really strongly just considering going to NYU with her. Everyone at Cornell will be just like her, and I don't stand a chance. And I know if I go to Cornell, we're going to drift apart, which would suck because we're best friends, and I just don't want to lose my sister. Update 3. So I told my parents, and they did not react how I would have expected them to. First, they tried to insist that Cornell made a mistake between our applications. Then they went on to explain how I should go to NYU with my sister. I thought it was strange because they definitely would have supported my sister going to Cornell if I didn't get in. My sister apparently thought so too because she asked why would I not go to Cornell, and they said how unfair it was that I basically slacked off in high school and was able to go when my sister was the hard-working one who busted her tail at school. I don't know if I'm being dramatic, but that hurt. I knew they always thought my sister was the smarter one. They've made it clear multiple times. But to hear them say that I don't deserve my spot really sucked, even though they're probably right. I stood there in silence, but my sister stood up for me. She asked them how could they say something so cruel to their daughter, that I 100% have every right to be there, and that they should apologize for being so rude. My parents were shocked because we're both very passive people, and neither of us ever talked to them like that before. This started an argument, and long story short, we're currently in our rooms. I'm just so thankful to have her stand up for me. I realize that I have internalized a lot of the comments they've made over the years. I'm glad I have my sister who actually believes in me. I still don't know if I want to go to NYU or Cornell, mostly because I just don't want to go to school without her. She's my best friend, and going 4 years without someone who just thinks so positively about you just seems so long. At the end of the day, I always thought the NYU was going to be the school I was going to, so I wouldn't lose much by choosing it over Cornell. I'm going to talk about it more with my sister and look into both schools more. Update. So later that day, my parents actually came to me and apologized for everything. I know everyone in the last post really hated them, but my parents are actually good people. They have flaws, but we all do. They knew I was smart and even encouraged me to apply to schools like Cornell. They just automatically assumed my sister would get in, especially versus me, which if you look at our scores, I can't say they should be blamed. Nevertheless, they realized that they were being jerks, and they apologized for making me feel like I'm not as capable as my sister. That they were shocked, but it was no excuse for what they said or how they made me feel, and they loved me and apologized for what they said. And for the moment you've all been waiting for, I decided that I want to go to Cornell. It was such a tough choice and wasn't made without serious consideration, but ultimately I'll be happier in Ithaca. Plus, my sister is going to try to transfer after our freshman year, if she still wants to go. She may find that she loves NYU after all that time. Whatever she decides, I have no doubt she will be extremely successful. Plus, it'll be good to spend some time apart from each other and grow as people. NYC is only a short bus ride away, so we can definitely see each other during holidays and breaks. I want to thank everyone for their overwhelmingly positive support. Am I the jerk for insisting on living with my dad to attend a better school? I'm 15, male, living with my mom since she and my dad divorced. My dad just got married to a woman with 2 sons who are 13 and 8, and they all moved into her house. Where I'm currently living with my mom isn't great, especially compared to where my dad lives now. Even the schools there are much better. My school doesn't send students to top universities, while this other school sends students to them, so it's a huge difference. I talked to my mom about it, and she thought it might be a good idea for me to live with my dad for the sake of the better school, so I brought up the idea to my dad. He told me he needed to think about it and would get back to me. After a few days, he told me it wasn't possible. Naturally, I asked him why, and he explained that their house only has 3 bedrooms, theirs and 1 for each of his sons. He said this is a new phase in their lives, and they need time to adjust to living together. He also mentioned that my stepbrothers and I haven't spent much time together, so there's a chance of conflicts arising. He thinks I should get to know my stepbrothers better before making a big change that could disrupt the family dynamics. I didn't agree with his answer though. I told him I'd be totally fine sharing a room with my 13-year-old stepbrother, and we've never had any issues when we've hung out. I also pointed out that saying no to this opportunity could seriously affect my college plans, given that the school in that area is much better. I explained that I spend a lot of time at school studying or in extracurricular activities, so I'll not impact a lot in family dynamics. I'm very obedient, and I'll do all chores that they need done at the house. I'll spend the weekends at my mom's house. But he stuck to his decision. I really want to move in, so I reached out to my grandparents and uncles to talk to my dad. They had a chat with him, and he called me afterward pretty angry. He said I should have accepted his first answer, and now the whole family is against him, thinking he's not acting correctly. I want to live with my dad, but I can't seem to get him to be cool with it. I get that their house doesn't have enough rooms for each kid, but I'm willing to share. I understand it's a different dynamic for those used to having a room to themselves, but it's new for me too. I admit I don't know my stepbrothers that well, but up to now, I've never had any relationship issues with anyone in my life. I've always been respectful and helped with chores, and that wouldn't change now. I don't understand where the fear that I could cause harm to them is coming from. I genuinely see this opportunity as very important, but I'm at a loss for how to convince my dad to let me live with them. I'm in need of ideas. I know you're only a teen, but you need to grow up a bit here. You're being very selfish. Why would you want to be somewhere you're clearly not wanted? It's your stepmom's house. It's not like your dad bought the house with her. OP. First, I'll be there every weekend because it's also my dad's house. Actually, if I attend school there, I'll spend Monday through Thursday there, and I'll be with my mom on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So it's just one day of difference. Second, there's a significant distinction if I go to school in my dad's district or my mom's district. I want to get into a good college. College can make a huge difference in life. Update. Well, I guess any chance of me studying near my stepmom's house is over. A few days ago, I messaged my dad asking what time he'd pick me up on Friday to spend the weekend at their place. He didn't respond, so I asked again, and he said he wouldn't be picking me up, that I wouldn't be spending the weekend there. I asked why, and he said it's not his weekend, it's the next one. I was really upset by this because he never used the weekend is his or not excuse. Before he got married, we spent practically every weekend together. To me, this showed that he truly chose his new family over me. He knew I was already upset about the school situation, and he did this to show me that I'm not welcome there. I told him that it's okay for him to choose his new family, but he didn't need to pick me up anymore, that he could just forget I exist and I'd do the same. I logged into Instagram, which I don't use, to block him, and I saw a picture of him at an amusement park with my stepbrothers, and he had written, "Me and my boys." He didn't even invite me to go with them. I have no idea when that was. He truly excluded me from his life. I got even more furious and sent him a message telling him to enjoy having 2 sons now instead of just 1, and that I wanted him to go buzz off. My dad called me multiple times. I answered once, and he started scolding me, saying I'm acting like a kid, and I hung up on him and didn't pick up again. He sent several messages saying he wants to talk to me. I was really naive in this whole situation. He replaced me months ago. I couldn't bike to school because of the knee surgeries I had, and I just realized now that he never once took me to school. It was always my grandparents or my mom. Lately, I've seen him very little, and I thought it was because of the surgeries and recovery, but apparently he only had space for every other weekend, whereas before his new family, he was always available for me. My mom is upset with me too. She says I lost my reason, that I have to talk to my dad, that I'm not behaving appropriately. As far as I'm concerned, I'll never talk to my dad again. Now I'm gonna spend the night staying in my room because if I step out, my mom's gonna try to force me to talk to him. I don't know if I'm doing right or wrong, but right now I'm just really angry and sad. I never thought my dad could replace me like this. I thought he truly cared about me. Edit. People are saying that my mom is taking my dad's side. Nope. She doesn't want me to be in a fight with my dad. She's saying that we need to talk, listen to each other. I guess no mom wants her kid to be in a fight with her dad. But I don't want to talk to my dad though. Update. He sent a lot of messages last night. He's saying that we need to talk in person, that I'm misunderstanding everything. He came over early this morning, but I told my mom I didn't want to talk to him and I locked myself in my room. He wants to come tonight and talk. Update 2. I talked to my dad, but I told him I'd only talk if my mom were there too. The 3 of us sat down at the table. My mom said I should be the first to speak, but when I started talking, she said it wasn't what I should say and that I should apologize first. So I apologized to my dad for the language I used. Then right after, my mom said I'm grounded for 2 weeks for my language, stating that nothing justifies what I said to him. It's my first time being grounded in my life. Then it was my dad's turn to talk. He said I'm being immature and unfair. He explained that he has other people in his life who are important now, so he can't give me the same attention as before. I tried to talk, and my mom told me to listen quietly and that I'd have my chance to speak later. He mentioned that I act like everything has to be according to my will and circled back to the school situation. He told my mom that I talked to my grandparents and uncles, and my mom got upset about that, adding another week to my grounding. And when I tried to complain, she said she was disappointed in me for not understanding that I should respect my parents' decisions. So I figured it would be better not to argue further, as it would extend my grounding. So I'm grounded for 3 weeks now, both for my language I used with my dad and not respecting his decision. Finally, he said he's always done everything to be present in my life and give me the best that he can. He said he feels unjustly treated after years of dedication, and I treat him like he's done nothing for me. I have to agree that he was very present and dedicated until recently, but I can't feel that anymore. When I started talking, my mom said if my tone got aggressive, the conversation would end, as it's meant to be a friendly discussion, not a fight. I tried to stay as calm as possible so that the conversation wouldn't end before I could express what I was thinking. I said I understood that there are more people I need to share my dad's attention with now. However, these people are always with him since they live together, and the little time I'd have with him would only be on weekends. I mentioned that for the first time, he brought up the legal aspect that I'm only entitled to be with him every other weekend. I said this showed that he deliberately chose to decrease the time we spend together. I also said that having new people around doesn't mean he can forget about my feelings or me. I told him that the photo he posted at the amusement park with the caption, "Me and my boys," hurt me deeply. My mom hadn't seen the photo, so I showed it to her, and she was upset with my dad too. I said I understood the difficulty of me moving to my stepmom's house, but I felt extremely unjustly treated by the arguments presented. It was as if my stepbrother's difficulty sharing a room with me was just as important as a good educational opportunity for me. I said he should be concerned about my future, but it seems like the only opinions that matter are those of his new kids. He said I was misinterpreting things, but that he'd be more careful about posting pictures and captions that could hurt me. About the weekend issue, he said we're all still adjusting, and indeed, he'd like me to be able to come over every weekend like it used to be. But now he needs more predictability since more people are involved. I mentioned again that he was putting others' desires ahead of mine and that my wishes were never a priority compared to theirs. This showed me that he had preferences. He fell silent for a moment and then said he'd fix the situation. I'll always be welcome to visit and stay where he lives. He also said he wouldn't bring up the every other weekend visitation arrangement again. He said the school issue is more complicated, but that he's still looking into a solution. He again said I need to understand that circumstances change and I'm still his priority, but now there are more people involved. He mentioned he knows it's not easy for a 15-year-old, but I'm smart enough to know that he's speaking the truth. He invited me to spend the weekend with him, but I declined, saying I don't feel welcome at the moment. He said he loves me and that if I ever doubt that at any point, I can call him. So that's where we are. We're at a bit of an impasse. He's been sending me several messages every day to show that he's there for me. I feel like I'm being a bit unfair to him. On the other hand, I feel like his new family doesn't want me around. Imagine already only seeing your kid, who you love supposedly, during the weekends, and then telling them that you don't even want to see them then. The dad trying to play the victim here is quite funny to read. Who needs a biological kid when OP's dad can look like a hero for fathering stepkids? I feel bad for OP. Neither of his parents seem to be looking out for him. This dad is dropping his kid for the new shiny ones, and I have no doubt his wife is egging this on. The "you can come over anytime" will be short-lived. So much of what his dad said is such blatant BS, and I'm surprised mom didn't call him out on it. Sadly, I think OP is going to find himself abandoned in the next 6 months to a year. Goodness, I hope I'm wrong though. This poor kid is really getting the short end of the stick here. He sounds quite a bit smarter and more reasonable than any of the adults in this scenario. If dad married new stepmom without the kids ever spending enough time around each other to develop a relationship, he moved too fast. Stepmom fully bringing him into her family while excluding his son is inexcusable. Sidelining OP's education because integrating the family would be a challenge is inexcusable. Some people treat kids like inconvenient pets. This makes me so sad. His dad is obviously replacing him and just got caught in the act, and his mom seems way more worried about respect and not her son's feelings. I really hope OP has someone else in his corner. It's like everyone posting is the idiot. It's not the dad's call. It's not his house. Stepmom decides. This kid sounds like a sociopath, along with naive about family dynamics. His father has moved into a new house with his new wife and 2 sons recently, and the kid is like, "I need to live with you for school." Not wanting to be a part of the family dynamic at all, In fact, it sounds like he just wants to game the system and doesn't even consider any other issues or complications. If his parents cannot get his therapy because of money, how in the name of Thor will they be able to pay for a T20 college? There is so much missing from this, I cannot begin to trust the narrator. P.S. After reading some of the top comments, I expect to be pulverized in the votes, but I stand by my take on it. I'm sorry, but she married a man with a kid, and they don't even have a room for him to sleep in just for when he visits on weekends. The readjustment process should have started the second they knew they were getting married to have space for OP. If that's where his father lives, then he has a right to have a space for himself there. And if they weren't willing to find a way to accommodate his presence, then they never should have gotten married. Because regardless of his desire to live there full time, they would already be jerks for not having his own space set up for him just for when he visits. Do you realize the father could actually disown his son? Does this make him a crappy father? Yes. Would this make OP's situation better? No. OP is acting like a spoiled brat. He could have handled it better and actually gotten things his way. Am I the jerk for hiding my savings from my fiancé? I recently got engaged to my fiancé after 2 years of dating and told her we should probably start looking at houses. She told me that we didn't have the money for a deposit on a mortgage, but I personally have a lot of money in savings. It's a little bit more than $160,000. My girlfriend was initially just shocked because it's a lot of money for a 24-year-old to have saved. I've been extremely lucky in life. After a couple of days, she began to be annoyed at me. She felt like I was hiding this from her. I told her that I didn't hide it from her. I was just raised to not talk about personal finances with anyone other than someone you're married to, and I figured engaged is close enough that I'm happy to talk about it. I also said that I had actually used these savings to help her before. I've paid her rent a few times when she couldn't, and paid a couple $1,000s for her dog to get surgery. She was still quite angry and has been giving me the silent treatment for the past day. My parents don't see the problem. Her parents understand my perspective, but think I should have told her when we moved in together last year. None of our friends know because I don't feel comfortable talking about it with them. I've already asked her if we can talk about it when she's ready, and she just said that she'll let me know when she is. I don't think this is relationship ending, but I know she probably wants me to admit I was wrong. I don't think I've done anything wrong, so I'm asking you guys more so out of curiosity for what others think. Not the jerk. And for the love of goodness, do not marry her without a prenuptial agreement. Don't say you haven't been warned. Exactly. She's upset because she's thinking of what she could have been doing with that money. Don't marry without a prenup. Exactly. Her thought is, but I could have done so much with that money. Not the jerk. Why is she upset? You need to ask her this and listen closely to her response. She may think that because you have a comfortable savings, you should have been paying more of the rent or bills. This isn't true. You pay your way with your earnings, not your savings. Knowing about your savings should not change any part of her life at all. So why is she mad? What difference does it make? If anything, this is a happy surprise. Had you been drowning in debt, she would have reason to be annoyed. As it is though, what's her problem? Only thing I could think of is she wants him spending more money on her if he's got that kind of cash saved up. Not the jerk. Get a new fiance. This one is not ready to be an adult. Not the jerk. I've been through this same thing before. I've talked to friends who have also. Most younger guys these days who save a large amount of money, their girlfriends are going to flip out when they find out about it. They feel entitled to have known about that money and to have had some level of access to it. When I was 19, my girlfriend found out I had $1,000 in my savings account. She completely lost it and said with all that money, we could have been doing so much more. Restaurants, concerts, etc. Now I'm in my 30s and I'm a millionaire. If I had stayed with her or someone like her, what kind of financial position do you think I'd be in? Demand I lower the rent? Not gonna happen. I let someone live in my house for free while he tried to get his dream job. Well, he got it a week ago and won't stop reminding me how he's taking a pay cut for this job. It's a huge room with private bath, private balcony, 2 sliding door closets, and an additional walk-in storage closet in the hallway. There's central air and heat, the fastest internet my address can get, and 2 outdoor spaces. There's a laundry room. The hardwood flooring is brand new. We agreed the rent would start after he got his new job. He told me repeatedly, "Once I get this job, I can pay rent like a normal tenant, no problem." He got the offer over a week ago for the new job. I told him this week the lease would start on March 15th and rent would be $1,350 with internet and all utilities included. And he balked at that price. I told him fine, that we could do 3 months at $1,000 and then 9 months at $1,350 with all utilities included. Nope, he's still balking at that price. His reasoning is because he has to buy a $15,000 car and it has to be a used Prius. I encouraged him to buy a cheaper car and widen the brands and models that he's considering, but he refuses because a Prius with specific options is his perfect car. I have never spent that much on a car. He acts like because I own a home, I must be rich. I'm 1 mile west of SoFi Stadium in Inglewood. My tenants in 2012 paid $1,250 a month, so I have only increased the rent by $100 in 11 years and he's still complaining. I worked hard to buy this house, 80 to 100 hours a week for all of my 20s, and I work hard now to maintain it. You can't find a private room with private bath anywhere near me for the price I'm offering him. The only cheaper place near me is a dormitory-style house where 4 adults share 1 bedroom, 2 bunk beds for $750. I do think that's outrageous and believe what I'm offering is more than fair. I feel like telling him, if you think you can find a better deal, then go do it. He's acting like I'm a jerk for not lowering the rent. Am I the jerk for taking this position? Am I being the jerk for refusing to reduce the rent? Edit. Thank you everyone who responded. Even the "you're the jerk" replies were helpful. I am a people pleaser. I've been working on it in therapy and have had a hard time saying no. I've rented this room out many times for free or extremely reduced rates in the past for people needing help getting back on their feet without issue and did not expect a situation like this to come up. A few people mentioned that I'm price gouging, but it's the opposite. I'm offering the lowest rent you can find in my area. I've received several messages and DMs from Redditors asking to take the space or inquiring for a friend. It may seem high to people living in other areas, but this really is an amazing deal. I know how hard it is to survive in today's world, and this has been my way of giving back. I do perform other community service, like handing out blankets and umbrellas on rainy days or stocking the community refrigerator. But a place to live is the most important thing underprivileged and underserved people need. I will think about how I do this moving forward to better protect myself. Several people provided links about ending his stay, and I am grateful. California does have larger laws, California Civil Code, pertaining to people who rent out a single room in their house that they also live in. I did not want to go this route and demand that he leave, but I feel like I must in order to protect myself. Everyone sucks here. Stop negotiating based on his financial decisions like you're his life partner and calculate the fair market rent for the room. His money is his to manage. He can get himself a used Prius if he wants to, and he can rent a room from you if he wants to. If he can't do both, it's his responsibility to pick one and figure out an alternative for the other. It's not your responsibility to advise on or plan around that choice. Yes, you're the jerk for profiting on housing. No jerks here. As much as I'd like to shoot down a landlord, you do seem to be a fairer one. I think your tenant just needs a reminder of what the rental market is like at the moment. That hardly makes them or you the jerk. Info. Who is this someone? A random dude? Seems strange to let someone stay rent-free with no formal agreement in place, including the discussion of what rent would be after he found this job. You're the jerk for being a landlord with no sense. You're the jerk. That's an absurd amount of money for what he's getting. I had a 2-bedroom apartment to myself in a downtown location for $1,200. You're offering 1 room, amenities, and a roommate situation. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or is the tenant? Please let us know. I think the real jerks are these bozos on Reddit who think all landlords are the devil. Oh, it's not their fault, Karen. They're just products of our failed educational system. Am I the jerk for letting my sister walk me down the aisle? I, 23 female, was raised by my older half-sister who's 32. I never met my dad, and our mom passed when I was 10 and my sister was 19. My sister's dad was still in her life and was willing to support her, but not me. My sister chose to be my guardian, and her father's family went low contact with her as a result. In order to raise me, she gave up a lot: her relationship with her father, college, her 20s, and so much more. A few months ago, I got engaged, and I told my sister that in addition to being my maid of honor, I also wanted her to be the one to walk me down the aisle. All my life, she's had to fulfill so many roles for me: big sister, mother, father, friend, that it only felt right that those multiple roles be honored on one of my biggest days of my life. My sister was ecstatic, and so was I. but when I brought it up with my fiancé, he objected. My future in-laws are very traditional, and my fiancé had always expected that his wedding would be a very traditional wedding. He said that it was great that my sister was my maid of honor, but that her having two roles wasn't, and that it wasn't appropriate for her to walk me down the aisle since that's usually done by the father. Apparently, his family had assumed that my future father-in-law would be the one to walk me down the aisle since I don't have any male relatives. I told him that I appreciate his father being willing to do that for me, but that the one who made me the person I am today is my sister, so it's right that she be the one to give me away. It turned into an argument that spread to my in-laws. My mother-in-law called me a few days ago to say that although she understands how important my sister is to me, that it's also my fiancé's wedding and I shouldn't be putting my sister before him on his day. I definitely heard her on that, but this is still important to me. At this point, my sister has even said that she doesn't mind just being the maid of honor and that she doesn't want to turn my happy day into something stressful. So now it's just me holding out and being stubborn, but I really don't want to concede on this point. Am I being the jerk here? Edit. I did not expect this to blow up like it has and haven't been able to read through all of your verdicts and comments yet, but I want to clarify on some of the inquiries that I've seen repeated so far. Are the in-laws contributing to the wedding? Yes. In fact, they're paying for about 75% of it since I'm still in school and I don't have the money to put towards a wedding the scale that fiancé wanted. Does your fiancé have sisters? No, he has two younger brothers. Did he ask your sister for your hand? He did, actually. She also helped him custom design the engagement ring. She showed me their group text, and at one point, they spent 3 weeks trying to decide between 5 different diamonds. Maybe I should just propose with an infinity gauntlet. It was very sweet and cute. What about when you have kids? Have you talked about having kids? Because of a medical condition, I'm infertile, though neither of us feel a particular strong urge to be parents anyway. But we also know we're still young and that may change. But even if it does, it would be very far in the future. Could you walk down the aisle by yourself? That was my sister's suggestion when she said she was fine just being the maid of honor, but I rejected it. Because of her, I never walked alone on the worst days of my life, so I'm definitely not going to walk alone on the happiest. Not the jerk. And this is a hill to die on in my opinion. How is it that you're holding out and being stubborn? Couldn't you say that about your fiancé? He wants to take away something meaningful to you because he wants things to appear his way. That's entirely self-serving. You're not putting your sister before him. You're putting her on your side, right where you want her. This is weird controlling behavior on your fiancé's part, and it gives me a very bad vibe about him and his family. What happens down the road when or if you decide to have kids? If you pick out a kid's name, does he get to veto that and replace it with a name of his choosing too? What's your role going to be in the household, and is that okay with you? I'm not saying to end things over this disagreement, but do take a good look at where you are and where you're heading before going forward. OP. I guess I started feeling like I was being stubborn when my sister also suggested that I drop it. I was the only one fighting my side of the fight, and everyone else was coming at me with, I understand, but, and it made me feel like I was the unreasonable one. That's why I came here, to get some unbiased opinions. Your sister is trying to cause you as little stress as possible, and if that means she has to step back from something she clearly wants to do, then she'll do it. It will hurt her, but she will do it to save you from stress and pain. She's already shown she will sacrifice herself to keep you happy and healthy. I would gladly die on this hill if the person I'm marrying said he gets to choose who walks me down the aisle. Not the jerk. 1. What a wonderful way to honor your sister and the roles that she's played in your life. 2. Your partner's inability to grasp something so significant to you is disturbing. 3. The fact that your mother-in-law and probably your partner think that you're putting yourself ahead of his or their feelings would make me run from them all. Not the jerk. Honestly, him running to his family and them coming after you on his behalf makes me a little hesitant about your current communication and conflict resolution within your relationship. You clearly have an imbalance of family support. I'm worried you're going to be completely crushed under their collective weight. Are you always going to have to give in because they get a vote and outnumber you? Well, who do you think's in the right? OP or her fiancé? Please let us know. Anyone can show you their true colors, but it's up to you to see them for who they really are. Should I keep my wife's promise to take care of her parents? My wife passed 3 years ago in an accident. I'm now a single father to our 3 kids, who are 11, 8, and 5. It's been incredibly difficult providing for them by myself, but they've never wanted for anything a day in their life. Thanks to therapy and a good support system, they're happy, healthy, and thriving. In my wife's culture, it's customary for kids to take care of their parents in their old age. Her parents very much expected this of her. This was something my wife talked to me extensively about before and during our marriage. Actually, it was something we fought about a lot because I felt that our focus should be on our kids and doing everything we could to give them a good life. My wife wanted to house her parents in our home, but I disagreed for multiple reasons, such as cost and lack of living space. We eventually agreed to help them pay for a condo or other living arrangements, but not house them. Sadly, we never got a chance to figure out exactly how that would work. Her parents, her mom specifically, took my wife's passing hard and fell into depression. She pretty much became a recluse, and neither her nor my father-in-law have been very involved in our lives since her passing. However, my father-in-law recently retired and reached out to me about honoring my wife's promise to help take care of them in their old age. I flat out told him that I cannot honor that promise. He got upset and told me that this was something that his daughter had promised him and his wife, and as her husband, it is now my responsibility to keep that promise. I told him that I have 3 kids to provide for, and I do not have the time, energy, or money to provide for 2 more people. He told me I was disgracing my wife's honor and memory, and that he knew it was a mistake for her to marry outside of her culture. He called me again a few days later and tried to apologize for what he said. He told me that he acted irrationally and that he's sure we can work something out that will be beneficial for everyone. I asked him what he meant by that, and he said that he and his wife could come live with us so that I have help with the kids and I can still honor my wife's promise to her parents. I again flat out told him no. I told him that I've managed fine the past 3 years without their help and I'll continue to do fine. I told him his proposal is only beneficial to them, not to me in any way. He again tried to tell me that I need to do this to honor his daughter's memory, as this was something that she promised to him and his wife. I told him that sadly, that promise had ended with his daughter. He said something to me in his native language that I'm assuming from his tone was not a compliment and hung up on me. They've been minimally involved in our lives since her passing. Their needs are so far down my priority list. But I'm torn because I hate feeling like I'm letting my wife down in any way, even if she's not here anymore. Widow here. My late husband's mother is a single older woman with 2 living daughters. However, she believed my husband and I would build a tiny home on our land for her and care for her and support her in her old age. We have an elementary-aged kid. I was never on board with this plan, and neither was my husband. But he did ask me to look out for his mom after he passed. He got sick, so we had time to talk through all of this. By looking out for her, he meant stay in her life, check on her, and be there in the event of an emergency. After he passed, his mother went absolutely feral on me, making heinous accusations, blaming me for stealing her son from her, and promising me that she would never forgive me for being the one her son loved more than her. It's been almost 4 months since he passed, and I've cut her from my life. I feel guilty sometimes, but I'm a widow in my early 30s with a kid to provide for. I cannot sacrifice my peace or my time with my kid to care for a fully grown adult who failed to plan for her own future and who has been an absolute monster to me. All this to say, as someone in a similar situation, your priorities are your kid and yourself. You matter. Your needs matter. You are categorically not the jerk. They abandoned their daughter's kids for 3 years. They've only resurfaced because they want something from you. Truly, you're not the jerk. Don't feel bad for one more second. Care for yourself and your family. I wish you all the best, and I'm so sorry for your loss. Not the jerk. Odd that he didn't take this up with you until after he made the choice to retire and stop supporting himself. Apparently, it also didn't occur to him that you had only 1 income rather than 2, so you might have had to try to take care of more than just your immediate family. Am I the jerk for uninviting my mother-in-law for my wedding after she tried to sabotage my wedding dress? My future mother-in-law has never been a fan of me, I'm 26, female, for the entire duration of mine and my fiance's, who's 29, male, relationship. I'm honestly not sure why it is that she's always disliked me and has been cold to me, but after multiple attempts over the years to build some type of relationship with her, we've been together for 4 years, nothing has worked. She couldn't give 2 hoots about me up until the wedding planning started a few months ago. My fiance and I are paying for the majority of our wedding ourselves, while my dad and stepmom are financial contributing as well. Mother-in-law and father-in-law have not contributed at all, but mother-in-law is giving her opinions on things as if she's footing the bill. You should make the themes this color. Make sure you have this dish on the menu to be served. Don't do an open bar. You don't want people being too rowdy. Make sure me, my sister, and my cousins are sitting in the front row at the wedding ceremony, etc., etc. My fiance and I are absolutely sick of this. Every time she tries to give an opinion, we politely shut it down and tell her we have it under control, but she just never gets the hint. Before she became such a nightmare, I regretfully invited her to come dress shopping because I didn't want her to feel left out. Well, a few weeks ago, we went dress shopping. My mom and close friends came too, and I found my dream wedding dress. I have a curvy hourglass figure, and I found a dress that shows off my figure perfectly and makes me feel gorgeous. The dress is kind of revealing, low cut and mermaid style, but it's nothing I'd be ashamed of my family and friends seeing me in. My mother-in-law, on the other hand, hated the dress I chose. She made sure to express to me multiple times. She even went as far as to say, "This is a wedding, not a dance club. I don't like it." Well, I bought the dress anyway, since I'm the one who's paying for it after all. Last night, my fiance and I are cleaning up after dinner, and I received a call from the shop I ordered my dress from. They were calling me concerned because apparently a lady, my mother-in-law, called them pretending to be me and wanted to switch the dress I chose to a more appropriate one. The sales associate realized that it wasn't my phone number that called to make the change and called me immediately to confirm before they changed the order. I was livid. My fiance heard the entire conversation and was also livid. He called his mom to confront her and she fessed up after denying it a few times. I told her if she's so bothered by my dress to consider herself uninvited from the wedding, and I hung up on her. Safe to say, she's not happy. She's been calling both my husband and I nonstop trying to defend herself, but I've had enough. I feel bad for my fiance because he won't get to have his planned dance with her. Did I take it too far? Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. I would have done the same thing. But you and your fiance need to be in lockstep on this. So if he is, or starts hedging, don't go through with the wedding until you are both on the same page. You need to get these boundaries in place now, because mother-in-law will be a nightmare if you have kids, if you don't already. This is the easiest not the jerk ever. 1. This isn't her wedding. 2. She isn't paying for anything, let alone the dress. 3. She seems like a confrontational person to begin with. Time to have fun at your wedding without having to worry about her ruining it by being there. Lie about your natural hair color? Have fun with an awful dye job. My wife, 22 female, and I, 22 male, got my little sister, who's 12, some semi-permanent red hair dye for Christmas. She really wanted it and was really looking excited to using it on herself and her cousins. The hair dye is bright red, assuming you're light blonde or bleached, but sister has dark brunette hair, so the dye becomes a dark burgundy on her. Everything that follows is what she told me. I wasn't there for any of it. Sister brought her hair dye to family Christmas at Grandma's so she could share it with our plethora of cousins. One of our cousins, Anna, who's 16, is pretty entitled. She's a compulsive liar and a manipulator. I keep my audio recording app handy on my phone when I'm around her should I have to use it because I don't trust her. Anna asked sister to have her hair dyed. Anna obviously has had her hair bleached to a medium light or light blonde. Sister asked Anna, "Is your hair bleached or dyed? If it is, then it's going to turn out really bright and look crazy." Anna said, "No, what? Haha, this is my natural hair color." This is where the malicious compliance comes in. Sister and my other cousins share a knowing look before getting to work. After they let the paste sit for a reasonable amount of time, they wash it out. Instead of pretty mauve accents like in sister's hair, the back of Anna's hair looks like a bright, clowny, patchy mashup. Anna's response, I kid you not, was to look surprised and say, "Oh yeah, I did bleach my hair. I totally forgot this wasn't my natural hair color." At this moment, Anna's mother came in and was not happy. Anna wanted to take even more dye from my sister to try and even out the clown hair she had given herself, but Anna's mom stood up for my sister and wouldn't let her take any more. This dye is only semi-permanent, but it will still take 10 to 15 shampoos to be fully washed out. I only learned all this because I took my sister out on a breakfast date after New Year's. I was worried that Anna had bullied sister into using as much hair dye as she did. When I asked about it, it turns out sister just wanted to let Anna pay for her obvious lie. Edit to clarify some things. Okay, so it seems like some things are being missed or misunderstood. I had nothing to do with any of the actual malicious compliance. I simply got my little sister the gift she asked for. I didn't dye anyone's hair, and I didn't record any of this. I'm retelling my sister's and other cousins' retelling of the events. I'm not recording any video or audio of every interaction I have with Anna. In fact, I don't even see her that much. I mostly avoid her. For those of you accusing me of being a creep and calling this a self-report, that's a new one for me. Not totally sure how to respond other than saying read the story end to end. Maybe you're missing something. A lot of people are saying I made this up. I did not. I saw parts of this as it happened, and my sister filled me in on the rest. A couple of you were judging me for being married at 22 and even rooting for a future divorce in the comments. My wife and I are currently very happy, but I will let you guys know if divorce ever comes. Neighbors have been using my driveway to access their property. I bought a house with a very weird driveway situation. The previous owner owned 2 houses next to each other, sold one to me and kept the other. My property has 2 driveways, one on the north for a detached garage and one on the south for my house. Their property has no driveway of its own to connect to the street, so when the previous owner sold the place, he drafted an easement for them to use the northern driveway only. My southern driveway also connects to the neighbor's property, and they have a 4-car paved section that they park their cars on. They access this by using my house's driveway, not covered by an easement, so no maintenance agreement for their use. I didn't want to cause problems with the neighbors right off the bat, so I let them continue to use it. They use it 3 times as much as I do. He seems pretty put off that he could no longer park cars on my property, but was thankful to use the driveway since, if I didn't allow it, he would be down 4 parking spaces. They are tenants. The owner, and previous owner of my house, is a jerk who has 4 families in a 4-bedroom house. There's 12 cars, 4 of which are inoperable, 3 boats, 1 of which is the landlord's, and a motorcycle between them. This guy has real anger issues though. He constantly speeds through my driveway going backwards between my parked cars. I asked him to please slow down and he agreed, but he can't help himself. Recently, he's also started parking his cars on my property when the street sweeper is coming through. I have tenants renting rooms who are concerned about the noise and the safety of their vehicles. I'm tired of feeling on edge. Last weekend, he absolutely floored it down my driveway, peeling out. I got mad and put a planter in the driveway to block it off. He lost it, moved the planters, and continued on. He came at me absolutely rabid. His wife came out and started going off on me. I tried to de-escalate and told them that I'd be putting in a fence in a week to block it off, to give him time to figure out a parking solution. They can still use the north driveway covered by the easement. He's upset because he felt entitled to keep using my private driveway, and now he's flooring it every time he comes and goes. I'm in fear for my tenant's vehicle safety as well as my own physical safety, as this guy is clearly unstable. I'm tired of feeling taken advantage of by their use and so disrespected by his behavior. I feel I have no choice but to stand up for myself in this situation. I've been beyond patient, but I need to act if his behavior is scaring my tenants. I also have mild PTSD from living next to a house where I experience similar aggressive behavior daily. I'm fearful of what might happen next weekend when I build the fence. Should I call a friend to come over and help? What would you do? I would definitely have at least one friend there when putting up the fence. Also, record video of it, in case problems come up during the build. Put up a no trespassing sign immediately. Install cameras facing that driveway and anywhere else appropriate in case they retaliate against the vehicles that park there legally or if he tampers with the fence. You can also use them to enforce trespassing charges. Document every interaction with this neighbor in case you need it for later. For instance, if you need to get a restraining order. Good luck. Karen tried to control my diet, so I kicked her out. My friend Jen got laid off a couple of months ago. She's currently staying with me to save money until she finds a new job. Jen believes her being overweight has caused her to have low confidence, which then caused her to lose her job. Therefore, she decided to go on a diet to lose weight. I'm in full support of her decision, as I figured, regardless of her reasons, it can't be wrong to lose weight and be healthy. Jen downloaded an app that tells her what to eat and what to not eat, and she is not supposed to eat candy and other sweets. I like sweets, but to support her, I've stopped having cakes, milkshakes, etc. at home. The only sweets I have at home are candies. She said to me that candies were too enticing to her and I should get rid of them. But I need candies. They help me concentrate while I'm working. I work from home, and candies have been part of my diet for years. To accommodate her needs, I told her that I would not eat candies in front of her, and I would keep my candy in my bedroom, which she should not have access to. She got upset, saying I was not being a supportive friend, but I said I was being supportive, as I have made enough accommodations to make sure that no foods forbidden by her diet were accessible or visible to her. She was still pouting. This morning, when I came back from my daily run, I found her in my bedroom searching for stuff. I asked her what she's doing. She said she needed to find my junk foods and throw them away. This was completely unacceptable to me. For one, we agreed when she moved in that she should not enter my bedroom without my permission. I don't have a big apartment, and my bedroom is the only place where I can have some privacy. And she breached that agreement. And two, I do not believe she has the right to throw away any of my belongings. At this point, I told her if she couldn't respect my space and my routine, which do not affect her, she needed to leave. She threw a fit, accusing me of abandoning her at her most difficult time. But I explained that I wasn't kicking her out for no reason and that she's welcome to stay, but she would need to respect my boundaries. Am I the jerk here? Update. Thank you everyone for your comments. I really appreciate your insights. After our argument this morning, Jen went somewhere to clear her head. She just returned and we had a conversation. She asked me if I really wanted to kick her out. I said not exactly. My intention was mainly to remind her of my boundaries, but if those boundaries keep being breached, I would really need her to leave. She said she understood, but she realized that her staying here for too long would jeopardize our friendship, and she would not want that. She will find another solution to her living situation. Not the jerk in any way. You were nice enough to host your friend while she tries to get back on her feet. You were also kind enough to accommodate her requests about junk food in common and shared spaces. The violation of your privacy by going into your room in and of itself would be enough to kick her out. This is on her. OP. Thank you. She wasn't happy when I told her that she couldn't enter my bedroom without asking, because before she moved in, she was allowed to do whatever she wanted when she visited me. But it's different this time. She basically lives here now. I need to set some boundaries to protect my privacy. She could not be more wrong and has completely violated your privacy. What you eat is none of her business. You actually shouldn't have even given up what you did, cakes and milkshakes. You were too nice, and that might have been slightly enabling to her kind of crazy. Part of her weight loss journey is going to be learning how to live in a world full of food she chooses not to eat. Also, I don't believe she was going through your room trying to throw that stuff out. She was going to eat it. Not the jerk. My boyfriend and my brother lied to me for 8 years. Context and a very short version. When I was 17, I was in a relationship with my twin brother's best friend, Jake. It lasted 8 years till we were all finished with college and my ex had gotten enough money off his extremely religious parents to get a head start in life. If you don't know where this is going, my brother and Jake were together the whole time and used me as a cover because my feelings didn't matter. My brother had been out since his teens, which is why they came up with the idea to use me so his parents wouldn't get suspicious. My parents were angry with my brother, even cut contact for a year, but they all made up and have been pushing for us to speak since. I refused to speak to my brother due to how they dismissed me when everything came out. Jake literally said, "You wouldn't understand. I had no other choice." My brother was worse. Like, I get where Jake was coming from because his parents are nuts, but I didn't deserve to be treated like that. It's been 5 years since everything came out. I'm currently pregnant with twins with my soon-to-be husband. My brother and Jake moved back to our hometown last year. They have both been trying via my family and friends, even coworkers, to get me to talk. My mother begged me to sit down like an adult and don't let the past ruin my son's chance at having a relationship with our uncle. That my grudge I have against my sibling is ruining our family and my mental health. A few hours ago, I stopped by for lunch and to show my parents scanned photos. Guess who was there? The happy couple. I was literally in shock for a few minutes. Then when my brother tried to hug me, I pushed him away. I got so worked up, I physically couldn't stop shaking at this. My brother and Jake tried to apologize, talked about what happened, and begged for a relationship. I was in tears and begged them to leave me alone. In the end, my brother handed me a letter and said, "I really wish things could be different. You're my sister, my twin. I do love you, and it hurts me that we don't have each other anymore." So basically, I'd lost it, ripped up the letter, screaming that we weren't family, and I just want him to leave me alone. I walked out after that and had to get a taxi home because I was too upset to drive. Since then, my parents and family members have told me I'm cruel and bitter and that I need to stop living in the past and get over it. Hey guys, I won't be replying anymore because I'm very emotional and don't feel well. Not due to anyone in this sub, you're all amazing, but someone gave my brother my number, and with my family's non-stop calls, I'm gonna have to turn my phone off for my own sake. And before anyone asks, my fiance said in the family group, if anyone shows up at our home, they'd better hope the cops get there before he answers the door. I'd like to answer a few questions a lot of people keep asking before I go. After 8 years, why didn't you see any signs? Basically, my brother and ex were always close, and I obviously never thought that they'd do something like that to me. Like, your brother is meant to protect you from the bad guys. What kind of relationship did you and Jake have? We lived together for 2 years, and we did everything a normal couple does, so I hope that clears up a lot of curiosity. Why are you more angry at your brother than Jake? I will never forgive Jake, but I did and still do pity his situation with his parents. The reason I'm more angry at my twin brother should be obvious. What do you plan to do with your parents? As of now, I will go no contact till my babies are born and at least 3 months old so I can be in the right headspace. Are you in therapy? Yes, it helped me love myself again and trust people. I'm in a way better place than I was a few years ago. Not the jerk. I feel sorry for Jake with his parents, but what he and your brother did to you is horrible. They betrayed your trust, both as a romantic partner and as a sibling. If they had told you the truth at age 16, you might have even offered to be a cover. But instead, they chose to lie to you for 8 years. No one, not your brother, not your parents, no one gets to determine when you should be over it. You are not obliged to accept any apology ever. And tell your parents if they can't respect your feelings and your decision, they will no longer be part of you or your children's lives. Karen invites me over for dinner, then demands I pay her for it. Typing this out sounds insane, and I really don't think I'm in the wrong, but I need to know. A friend invited me to a dinner party at her house a few weeks ago. The actual dinner party was last night. I asked if I should bring anything, but she said no, it's not a potluck. She'll be making dinner for everyone. There were 7 of us in total, and the food was good. During the meal, we were all laughing and called our friend, the dinner host, a chef because she made a big dinner for all of us, and we all said how much we appreciated it because it's hard to get everyone together at the same time. At the end of the dinner, we all helped her clean, we did the dishes, and we had some wine. It started getting late, so people started to head out. And on our way out, the dinner host said, "Don't forget to Venmo, Cash App, or Zelle me." Some of us were confused because we had no idea that we had to send her money. So I asked, "What am I sending you money for?" And she said, "For cooking dinner." Me, "I don't understand why we should pay." Her, "Because I spent my money and hosted the dinner and cooked." Me, "None of us asked you to. You volunteered to do it, and you never mentioned paying until now." "I didn't do this for free." Me, "You should have told us before you hosted that you expected this. I don't think it's fair to just bring this up and expect people to pay." She called me a jerk and said again that she didn't spend hours cooking, grocery shopping for free. I've never heard of this, like ever. We kept arguing, and after a while, I just Venmo'd her the $40 she asked for. I don't think I'm the jerk at all, and some of my friends agree with me. Some have said that it's normal to pay for dinner during a dinner party at someone else's house, so now I'm not sure. Edit. A lot of you asked what she made, and it was some salad that I've never heard of. The main course was smoked Gouda mashed potatoes with beef short ribs. A dessert I forgot the name of. I think she said she bought this from a bakery. She also made vegan mashed potatoes and vegan ribs for one of our friends who's vegan. She also made, or bought, chicken skewers as the appetizer. Even though she said not to bring anything, I brought rum cake from my local bakery. And yes, everyone brought something small. We also had charcuterie and cheese boards that 2 of the girls brought. Some girls brought wine, and we even had one girl bring candles to set the mood. We're in the US and none of us are European. I spoke with some of the others, and although they had paid for a dinner party before, it was at least discussed first. No one has ever done what this friend did, which was sprung up on us at an unexpected cost. All of us are in our early 30s. The group chat is going crazy right now because everyone is upset with her. Not the jerk. What your friend did was extremely scummy. She invites all these people to dinner that she's making, no mention of paying before and after this. And then when everyone is done eating and finished cleaning, out of the blue she expects everyone to give her money. If I was expected to pay for dinner without knowing until after I ate, I would have skipped the dinner entirely, cut contact with this friend, She shouldn't be hosting dinner parties if she's gonna pull stunts like this. Some have said that it's normal to pay for dinner during a party at someone else's house. No, this is not normal. It's normal at restaurants, but at someone's house? This ain't normal, and it sure isn't normal to wait until after the dinner was eaten and everyone helped clean up. $40 is a bummer, but in the long run, it's a small price to pay to learn that your friend is tacky, cheap, has bad manners, and has no social intelligence whatsoever. Consider it part of the cost of doing business as an adult, and handle your relationship with her in the future accordingly. You're the jerk. She has a house. It's up to you to pay her mortgage, taxes, and utilities. Oh, that's a joke. No. Am I the jerk for not letting my miracle baby niece be the flower girl? I'm 27, female. My older brother and sister-in-law, both in their mid-30s, just welcomed their first kid a year and a half ago, after years of trying. After many failed attempts, sister-in-law was told that she wouldn't be able to conceive due to a medical condition she has. They finally got pregnant. Since having my niece, the baby has been the center of attention at every family event we've had since she was born. Birthdays, weddings, family get-togethers, you name it. Now, don't get me wrong, I love my niece, but it can get to be a little too much when my sister-in-law goes on and on about how long they tried to conceive, complications they had, etc. Like a little too much info. Many family members have commented on how it's a bit excessive, but no one has said anything because they don't want to sound like a jerk. Anyway, I'm getting married in the spring, and my brother and sister-in-law approached me last weekend about having my niece be the flower girl. Now, my fiance, 35, male, has 2 kids, a son who's 10 and a daughter who's 6, from his previous marriage. His son is one of his groomsmen, while his daughter had asked to be our flower girl when we told them the news that we were getting married a year ago, as it's something she's always wanted to do. So of course we said yes. So I explained this to my sister-in-law when she asked me about my niece. She asked if my stepdaughter can just carry my niece with her. I said I don't think she'd be comfortable with that considering she's 6. She then asked why I can't just give that role to my niece and allow herself to carry my niece down as the flower girl. I said no, because I already promised my stepdaughter. She then started going off about how my lack of effort to incorporate my niece is disgusting to her. I should honor her in some way since I know how long and hard they tried for my niece. Now, I may sound like a jerk for this, but I kind of got fed up and I snapped and said, "Incorporate my niece how? By the time the wedding comes around, she'll be 2 years old. The entire family already knows your story about how long and hard you guys tried for her. What more do you expect me to do to honor her?" She started crying and said that clearly I don't love my one and only niece and I'm letting her down. I said of course I love my niece and obviously she's going to be involved in pictures and stuff, but I'm not going to let my stepdaughter down by giving my niece a role she's too young to remember anyway. Well, now sister-in-law and my brother are upset with me for not letting my niece be the flower girl and are running around telling the rest of the family I don't love my niece. My mom had been trying to stay neutral, but thinks my stepdaughter would understand if I explained to her I need to give that role to my niece. I'm firm in my decision though, and my fiance is thankful that I didn't let his daughter down. Am I the jerk for not allowing my niece to be the flower girl? Not the jerk. Let them be upset. If ever there was a time to take a stand for your stepdaughter, it's now. Without knowing her story or how she came to be part of your life, she's 6 years old and you've made a commitment to be in her life. The moment you make it official revolves around her as much as it does you. You absolutely have every right to honor the stepdaughter over the niece, and these first moments as stepmom are going to cause the ripple that forms the pond that is your relationship with her whole life. Trust me, if you back down now and give her spot away, it's going to ruin more than just your wedding. OP. I 100% agree. I came from a family with 2 divorced parents myself, and I'll never forget how crappy I felt when at my dad and stepmom's wedding, I wasn't included in it at all. Yet my younger brother was one of the groomsmen. Having that experience myself, I'd never want my stepdaughter to feel that way, or that she isn't involved in such a special day. It just causes so much drama in the family that it's so unnecessary. Not the jerk. She's their miracle baby, not yours. The fact that they want you to disappoint your soon-to-be stepdaughter in order to make their daughter the focus of your wedding is absurd. Not the jerk. It is your wedding. I don't know what gives people this sense of entitlement when it comes to events they aren't planning. If you want to compromise, at the age of 2, the baby should be walking. Maybe they could hold hands and walk. I had both of my nieces as flower girls, who were 2 and 9. Greedy owner tries to rip off my friend, ends up paying him double. My first job out of college was for a local TV station. The owner was, and still is, the worst human being I've ever met. This guy had money, but he would cheat and lie, anything to get out of paying his bills. When I started working there, the owner had just signed a contract with DirecTV to become part of their broadcast package. Since they were, at the time, purely a local TV station, this meant that we had about 2 months to upgrade our system so that we could start broadcasting to DirecTV customers in the entire Bay Area. Every day that we failed to do this past the deadline means that the owner would suffer a penalty per the contract. Not knowing how any of this works, the owner hired a friend of mine to come in as a freelance consultant. My friend told him that for about $15,000 he can get a system that will automate the entire process, which of course this guy didn't want to pay. He tasked my friend with finding a cheaper way, around half, and to pay for all of the hardware up front and get reimbursed later. Knowing what a jerk this guy is, I warned my friend not to front the money because he wouldn't get paid back. The guy just smiled and said, "Watch me." So he made it work. We went live on schedule and the owner was happy. Then my friend went in and presented the guy with the bill. Immediately, the usual excuses start. "Oh, I'm a little short this month. Can I pay you later?" etc. Then my friend pulled out the trump card. Not only did my friend threaten to take all the equipment back and take the station off the air, he reveals that in order to get the uplink working for cheap, he needs someone to come in every day and code the broadcast manually. It's not a terribly complicated procedure, takes less than 5 minutes, but of course, no one else at the station knows how to do it but him. So either the owner can pay him what he's owed, plus a $2,000 a month consulting fee, or the station goes dark and he starts paying the penalty to DirecTV. The jerk paid fast. So instead of $15,000, he ended up shelling out more than double that amount as my friend lapped up his $2,000 a month fee for close to a year before he felt bad and finally taught someone there how to do it. Moral of the story, only thinking about short-term gain will always cost you more in the long run. Am I the jerk for avoiding a game day I wasn't invited to? I'm female, 45. My husband, who's 44, has a group of friends he occasionally has over for a day of board games, like an 8 to 10 hour stretch. He goes to their houses to do the same. In the past, I was invited lots of the time, along with other wives and girlfriends. As we got older and kids came along, or for whatever reason, I'm not invited to participate. No other partners are either. It's probably been about 5 or 6 years. I've known these people for more than 20 years and I like them. I like games too. But whatever, it's his friend group, not mine. To be clear, I am explicitly not invited to join in. Now, when he hosts, I try to be out of the house doing other things. When I'm home, I go to a different floor of the house and just hang out by myself. I say hi briefly when I see his friends, but I don't stick around or have longer conversations. He asked why I'm like this, with annoyance, after the last one. He says one guy's wife is in the kitchen with them and cooks for them most of the day. She likes doing that. It's not a weird role thing. Another sits with them and chats. He says it's awkward that I don't do that and very clearly avoid the house entirely if I can, and then that floor if I can't. From my perspective, informed by a lonely childhood, I have absolutely no interest in hanging out around the edges of a social thing I'm not invited to. That seems so sad, pitiful, and desperate. I kind of had enough of doing that sort of thing more than 30 years ago. I'm not invited. How could I possibly tell if I'm an annoyance or too much, or affecting the dynamic from what they intended the dynamic to be by not having partners there? Further, it does hurt that I had been included and now I'm not. I really liked them and playing games. I guess that wasn't so much mutual. I'm always kind of sad that I'm not in a marriage where couple friends are a thing. We're friendly to each other's friends, but he, while entirely welcome, also isn't interested in hanging out with my friends. Maybe that's a rare situation for people. It's not what he wants, and he has a right to that. But I can be sad about it. He seems to think I am therefore pouting and taking it out on him. I think if I'm not included, it's crazy that there would be a problem with me absolutely not being there. So tell me, am I being an awkward and rude jerk? Edit to clarify a few questions. Yes, this has been communicated. Read the last 2 paragraphs like a conversation, with these words and details exchanged, because it was. Secondly, why I'm not included is irrelevant. It's completely acceptable to want to hang with your friends by yourself, even in a marriage. The change happened mainly due to ease of playing with a smaller crowd. It sucks for me, but no one is being explicitly mean to me by not including me. Third, I have stuff I'm happy to do on my own. I have my own friends, and while I get the nice intentions, I have no interest in making a friend group with the sole shared commonality of our husbands are friends, or excluded spouse spite game day. That seems extra and sad to me for some reason. Not the jerk. I would do the same thing. If I were explicitly not invited to a gathering, I would, obviously, not hang around. It sounds like your husband wants it both ways here. He wants you around to chat, etc., but you are explicitly not invited to take part in the entire reason for the gathering. So I'd consider him the jerk for complaining when you leave their gathering, to which you're not invited. If anything, I would consider it rude if I were to hang around when I'm not invited. There's no gray area in my mind. Your husband seems like a weirdo. I'm sorry, but all I can hear is, all the other mommies make us milk and cookies while we play Dungeons and Dragons. Why can't you? Not the jerk. There's nothing that says you need to play hostess to a party you don't get to join. It's the prerogative of the other wives to host, but that doesn't mean anything for you. You can do as you please. Ask him why the invites for you to play stopped. Info. What exactly does he want you to do? Provide snacks and then just sit and watch them play for 6 hours? If that is the case, then absolutely not the jerk. How would that be fun for you or comfortable for his friends? Assuming this takes place on a day off work, you should get to spend it doing what you want to relax, just as he is. You're the jerk. Possibly everyone sucks here, but either way, only somewhat mildly. It is kind of weird that you go to great lengths to completely ignore the game day group. I'm part of a game group that alternates between various locations, and in each place, the family members will occasionally stop by as they go about their own things. It seems to me you're hiding out of spite or hurt. None of us would ever expect our partners to cater to us, so if this is an exception that you want to get away from, a healthier way would be to address this directly. Also, if you're bummed about not getting to play as much anymore, I'd encourage you to find or build your own gaming group. It doesn't have to be with the other spouses. It seems to me that while you recognize that he has the right to do his own thing, you are nonetheless hurt by being unceremoniously uninvited and have not resolved this within yourself or with him. Daughter constantly complains to me about her upbringing. I, 45 female, had my daughter, CJ, who's now 28, when I was 17 years old. Her father did not stick around, and we really struggled for a bit. Even when I graduated college, I had a bunch of student loan debt, as well as juggling rent, food, and other expenses. CJ never lacked necessities, but I admit she didn't get a lot of material possessions. I would try to save up as much as possible to make Christmas and birthdays as fun as possible, but she didn't get much else throughout the year, and we only went on 2 vacations total in her childhood. We definitely ate a lot of struggle meals and had to move often. We honestly teetered on the poverty line. When CJ was 17, I was finally debt-free, got a promotion at work, and I was doing much better. I did start to give her things throughout the year. I used my bonus to take her to Disney World, somewhere she had always wanted to go but couldn't. It was nice that after years of struggling, I could spoil her a little. She went off to college, and in this time I met my husband, Matthew. We got married, and now we have 2 kids together, Jack, who's 5, and Melissa, who's 6. With our combined incomes, we live quite comfortably. I admit, Jack and Melissa have gotten a lot more than CJ did at that age. I've certainly never left her out. She's always invited on our trips, we pay for them. I get her random gifts throughout the year. Birthdays and Christmases are bigger. I'm trying to make it up as even as I can, but I know it realistically will never be. CJ first pointed out the discrepancy a couple of years ago when we took the kids to Disney. CJ went with us. I sat CJ down and apologized for her childhood. I said I wish I had been in a better place when she was their age. I know I can never truly make up for it, etc. I said I know it'll take time for her to heal from that. I thought that was it, but since then, CJ has constantly complained whenever her siblings get anything. I'm always super sensitive to her feelings, validate them, etc. But things came to a head recently, on Jack's birthday. Instead of a party, he opted to see the off-Broadway production of Frozen. We, as always, invited CJ to come along, as well as her fiancé. The whole night she was pouting and seemed upset. I tried talking to her, but she brushed it off. We went to dinner after the show. Jack and Melissa were excitedly talking about it. CJ then butted in. "You know what I got for my 5th birthday, Jack? A Barbie from the dollar store." The kids didn't really see the big deal, but the adults at the table understood. I was civil the rest of the meal, but later I called CJ and told her what she did was unacceptable. I cannot continuously apologize for her upbringing, and she can't throw it in my face. I asked her if she wanted me to give her siblings less simply because she did. She said no, but that she can bring it up whenever she wants and she'll continue to do so. I said I was disappointed and hung up. Later, CJ sent me a very long text telling me I was a horrible mother. Am I the jerk? I understand CJ's position. I can't think of one present I ever received from my parents. Not to discredit them because they paid for literally everything in my life. But I always knew they did their best, and I've always been grateful. CJ really needs to speak with a therapist and work on her insecurities. I don't get the hint from your post that you neglected her while giving her siblings more. Not the jerk. I can't understand it at all. She's 28 years old and she's jealous of a 5-year-old. She wasn't destitute. Her mother was doing the best she could. She got Christmas and birthday presents. OP, she's being utterly petulant. You've been way more than kind acknowledging the difference, including her and being generous with gifts and holidays now. Like, how long does she expect you to grovel? Time for her to grow up. Not the jerk for sure. Not the jerk from the info given. She's almost 30 years old and acting like a petulant child. From what you said, you truly did your best to raise her in a healthy and happy home and make sure she felt loved and had fun things from time to time. It sounds like she resents your new family with your husband and younger kids, but life goes on and you include her in all these vacations, etc. And you did the best you could as a young single mother and built a better financial life over time and with the help of a stable partner. It sounds like CJ needs therapy to work through these issues. She doesn't seem to have any perspective or maturity, unless there's more to the story. You're the jerk. Guess what? You can't control how your daughter feels and can't expect her to just forget her crappy childhood. Soft, you're the jerk. You can't help that you didn't have the money to give her a good childhood, but you also can't blame her for being resentful, seeing you showering her younger siblings with gifts and vacations constantly. There's a chance she's never going to completely get over that, and you have to decide what that means for your relationship. Honestly, I'd ask your daughter what it would take to make it right. Am I the jerk for refusing to invite my fiance's sister to our wedding? My fiance, 28 male, and I, 27 female, are getting married next year. His family is Spanish, but all of them speak perfect English. I don't speak Spanish at all. When I visit his family, no one ever switches over to English. They all always act like I'm not there. They just don't make effort to include me in their conversations at all. I swallowed this for years and I learned to live with it. However, I can't stand how his little sister, who's 27, treats me. Here are some examples. 1. When we visit his family, she always asks my fiance if they can spend time in two, to have some quality sibling time, without me. Since I don't know anybody in Spain, it just means that they're going out for the whole day and I just stay alone with their parents, who ignore me. I can't comprehend how people can treat their guests like that. I would never dream to tell my fiance to stay in a room in my hometown because I need some quality time with my sister. 2. I hate the smell of cigarettes. My nose is sensitive and I just can't stand it. I never have problems with it in public. When I smell it, I just move to avoid standing next to them. His sister smokes though, and she knows how much I hate the smell. She was asked many times to move her smoking elsewhere when I'm present, however, she always refused. There were times when we were eating lunch and she was doing this right next to me, knowing it disturbs me a lot. When I wanted to leave the table for 5 minutes to wait out the smoke, my fiance was calling me rude. Also, when I was refusing to sit down next to her, I was apparently being offensive. 3. We were planning a family trip. One day I was talking to my significant other in English when his sister comes between us and starts talking to my fiance in Spanish, ignoring my presence completely. He told me that his sister came and asked him to not bring me to that family trip, that it will be better without me, and that I'm not welcome there. I felt so disrespected that someone can stand in front of me and say all of these things in other languages, knowing that I wouldn't understand. 4. There were many moments when I was having an English discussion with my fiance, and his sister was just coming in and interrupting us without even hi towards me. She was just starting speaking in Spanish to my fiance, and I was just standing there, feeling very unwelcome. She advised my fiance to break up with me many times. She was telling his whole family mean stuff about me, apparently that I'm jealous, toxic, etc. None of it is true. I was very hurt hearing it, but I get it. If she felt like it, she should inform her brother. But not supporting our relationship makes me not want to invite her to our wedding. More subtle stuff, but character limit. So, now we're preparing a guest list. I don't want to invite her. I know I won't have a good time on my own wedding if she's there. Things she was doing to me were subtle, but I always felt excluded and bad. Am I the jerk? Edit. I'm learning Spanish. My current level is B1. All those situations above happened when I didn't speak a word in Spanish, and I didn't want to confuse people by saying I know Spanish now. Not the jerk. You don't have a future sister-in-law problem, nor a future in-laws problem. You have a fiancé problem. He should be asking family to include you in conversations. He should be asking his sister to keep away from you with her cigarettes. He should have your back. He doesn't. Put this relationship on hold at the very least. Reconsider it carefully. Not the jerk, but you seem to have a fiancé problem. So what if his sister asks him to spend the day with her? He can presumably say no. Also, who cares if his sister says he should break up with you? Is he defending you? Making it clear that he won't entertain that kind of talk from his sister? What exactly is your fiancé doing about these issues? OP. He's very defensive about his family. He's very close with them, and I'm trying not to get in the middle of their relations. To be honest, I think he never defended me or asked them to treat me nicer. Last month, his father visited us, and my fiancé told him that I feel uncomfortable when they speak Spanish all the time, so I won't be joining them for dinners. Seems like they were feeling glad I didn't join them. More family quality time for them, I guess. You sound like a very nice person, but with low self-esteem. That's the only reason I can see why you haven't stood up for yourself by now and dumped your jerk fiancé. And make no mistake, OP, your fiancé is a jerk. His family always excludes you. He does nothing. His family ignores you. He does nothing. They speak badly about you. He does nothing. Do you notice a trend here? Your fiancé is not a good life partner. He sounds like a great son and brother, but as your fiancé, the man gets a failing grade. I'm not sure if he's your first serious relationship, but this is not a healthy dynamic. Him letting his family ignore, offend, and disrespect and hurt you speaks volumes about exactly how much he cares about you. Yes, he's close to his family, but he can be loving to them, but still firm and demanding that they treat you better. I don't think your fiancé will ever entertain your suggestion not to invite his sister. You must know that. All that's going to do is he's going to make you the bad guy in their eyes. Besides, his sister is not the only problem here. The whole family disrespects you, and your fiancé allows it. Think about that, OP. Really think about what that means. I advise you to not marry this man as things stand. I knew someone in a similar situation, and she deeply regrets it. Often says she wishes she could turn back time and do things differently. I really hope you reconsider what exactly you're signing up for with this family. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her fiancé and his sister? Please let us know. I'm getting some serious Lannister vibes from fiancé and his sister. Ree, sweet home Alabama. Karen neighbor stole my mail. I got it back from her. I recently ordered a mini Keurig coffee maker because I'm moving and would like one for my apartment. I could not afford one when I first moved, but I have more money now, so it was something I really wanted to get. I came home from work yesterday and expected to see my Keurig, but it looked like it was not there. I looked at my security camera and found that someone, who I don't recognize, took my Keurig from my front porch. I filed a report with the Postal Service, but I haven't heard anything back yet. I have a friend in my neighborhood, and she was hanging out with our neighbor, and she noticed that my Keurig was at my neighbor's apartment. She asked my neighbor if she could deliver it to me, and my neighbor said no, because it was delivered to her, so therefore it was fair game. This was a lie, and I told my friend that it was not delivered to her, rather it was stolen. I was upset, and I went over there to try to get it back, but she tried to make me pay for it. I threatened to call the police because that's really the only line of defense I knew how to do, and she ended up giving it back. Now, however, she's not speaking to me, and my family thinks that I overreacted. I think it was a bit extreme to threaten to call the police, but mail theft is very serious, and the Keurig was something that I was really looking forward to. I know I shouldn't care if I look bad, but my family's reactions make me think that I was in the wrong. Am I the jerk? Edit. Thank you all for your nice comments. I honestly wasn't sure if I was overreacting, but I've realized that I was not. I will be filing a police report tomorrow, and I'm going to let people know that our neighbor is a thief. Hopefully it makes a difference, and even if not, I'm sure that doing this is the right thing. Also, I decided to open my Keurig, and I love it. I'm very glad I got it back. Not the jerk, but she's a terrible thief to steal and not get rid of the box with your name on it ASAP. OP. I totally agree. That's probably the first thing you get rid of if you're going to take something. The Keurig was still in the box on her kitchen counter. Not the jerk. She stole from you. That's the only point that matters. Why wouldn't you call the police? Especially since you have evidence that she took it. Don't know what your family's thinking, saying that you overreacted. She stole and refused to give it back. Therefore, you'd be completely fair to call the police. OP. I just don't know if it's worth my time because I'm moving. I think it might still be a good idea though, only because she could do it again. Am I the jerk for evicting a family so I can move in? My life is kind of in upheaval right now, so I really don't know if I'm the jerk in this situation or not. TA, because my brother is on Reddit. So, background. 6 weeks ago, I, 27, female, found out that my husband, who's 30, has been cheating on me for the past 5 years with a few different women. I immediately moved myself and our kids, who are 7, 5, and 5, to my parents' house, where my brother, who's 22, also lives. Being only a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom house, it's very cramped, but my parents insisted that I leave my husband. I've only worked part-time for extra cash since the twins started preschool 2 years ago, and was a stay-at-home mom for 5 years before that. My husband owned our house and controlled our finances. I've realized in all of this that I own almost nothing, have almost no work experience, and only have a general studies associate degree. Had to cut college short because I got pregnant. Suffice to say that I'm freaking out about how I'm going to provide for my kids going forward, because I do plan on divorcing. Which brings us to this post. On top of everything, my grandma passed 2 weeks ago. She was very private with her finances, and while we knew she and my late grandpa made money from renting houses, she told my mom a few years ago that she had sold all her rental properties. Come to find out that she kept 2, and in her will left 1 to me and 1 to my brother, only grandkids. The one my brother inherited has been vacant for a bit, but the one I received is a 4-bedroom, 1.5 bath, with a family of 6 that live there, a single mom and 5 kids. She's a friend of a friend, so I do know that her husband passed in 2020 from you-know-what. As much as I obviously miss my grandma, the house is an absolute godsend, and I started crying when I found out about it. I told to my brother and his girlfriend, who's 20, how me and the kids can finally get our life back on track a bit. His girlfriend got really cold and asked if I was really going to evict a family when I could just live with my parents until I get on my feet, especially since my brother is now going to move into his inherited house and make more room. And my brother agreed with her, saying it was selfish. My parents said it's my house and I can do what I want, but they see his point, and that the family living there could easily be in the same situation as me. It's been such an emotional few weeks, so I don't know if I'm being a selfish jerk or not. Edit. This has only been up for a little bit, but thank you so much for the advice and comments so far. It's been such a whirlwind that I forgot that I just need to stop and breathe sometimes. Thanks, anxiety. She's on a month-to-month lease for a little under market rent. I was so focused on the fact that I now own something other than my 15-year-old vehicle that I didn't even consider staying at my parents' for a bit after my brother moves out. I recently started a more full-time position, and my kids love their grandparents, so this makes the most sense while I tackle all the legal stuff that's coming my way. I'll talk to my parents tonight about this route, which would alleviate a ton of guilt I was already feeling about the possibility of eviction. Thanks for snapping me out of my own head for a bit. Not the jerk. Your brother and sister-in-law are guilt-tripping you. Also, the house your cheating husband thinks he owns is half yours. Make him sell or refinance and give you the money. Plus, go for alimony and child support. Do all of this while staying at your parents and collecting the rent from the home your grandma left you. Now you have cash, an income, and then buy another rental home and start building a rental empire. Good luck. Karen next door demands I get rid of my pet chicken. I've always loved animals, and a few months ago, I decided to get a pet chicken. I named her Lucy, and she quickly became the sweetest little creature. She follows me around the house and garden, and I love having her around. My neighbor, however, is not so thrilled. She has complained several times that Lucy's presence makes her uncomfortable. She says she finds the sight of a chicken in my garden unsettling, and she doesn't like the sound of her clucking. I tried to be understanding at first. I made sure to keep Lucy in a coop during the night, and I even offered to bring her inside during the day when my neighbor was around. But she still seemed unhappy, and eventually she told me that she thought it was unhygienic to have a chicken in a residential area. I was taken aback by this, and I tried to explain that Lucy was perfectly clean and well cared for. I also pointed out that several of our other neighbors have pets, including dogs and cats, which can be just as messy as a chicken. But my neighbor was still insistent that Lucy needed to go. I don't want to get rid of Lucy, but I also don't want to cause any problems with my neighbor. Am I the jerk for keeping my pet chicken even though it makes her uncomfortable? Edit. Thanks everyone for the thoughtful comments. I just woke up and I'll answer a few of the recurring questions here. There is no law or regulation in my area that prevents me from having chickens. I've seen your comments and messages about getting another chicken, and I will consider that now that I already thought of the name Bradford. I also love the petty route, but I think I'll just fortify the fence a little to make sure Lucy stays on my side. Not the jerk. I would start filling my yard with various chicken sculptures and decor so that she can be really unsettled. But I'm petty. Not the jerk for getting one chicken. Soft, you're the jerk for only having one. Get some more. They are very social creatures. HOA tried to punish us, told us to stop them if we can. This happened several years ago. We installed cameras in front of our home that were looking at our vehicles. Part of the camera angles did overlook part of two neighbors' properties, one backyard and one side yard. The cameras were battery operated and had a function where you could gray out areas that you didn't want to film. When motion occurred in the grayed out areas, the cameras would not be activated to film. The neighbors' entire properties and several bushes on our property were grayed out. We did this when installing them. One of the neighbors was a friend and had no issues with this whatsoever. We showed her the camera angle, and she said she didn't care whether or not we grayed out that area. We still left it grayed out over battery life concerns. The other neighbor's name was Karen. Not really, but we all know why I chose that name. Karen was on the HOA board. As you can imagine, we didn't get along with Karen or the HOA board. We told Karen about the camera and showed her the grayed out areas at the same time that we told our friendly neighbor about it. It was simply an FYI conversation. We're not on friendly terms, not an asking permission conversation. She told us to take the cameras down immediately or we would regret it. About a week after we hung the camera up, we got a notice from our HOA that we were violating the bylaws. The bylaw in question? A nuisance to your neighbors bylaw. There wasn't a specific bylaw preventing placement of the cameras, so this is all they could find to try and punish us. We responded with a letter detailing how we were not violating any bylaws or laws in general, and we asked them to cease and desist. We all know how these stories go though. They did not cease, and they certainly did not desist. Their first response? The HOA has the right to enforce these bylaws. Try to stop us if you think you can. These types of responses were, unfortunately, quite common from this board. We entered this battle with one goal in mind, to cost them as much money and time as possible. The HOA hired a lawyer specifically to fight us. To my knowledge, this has not happened to any other residents. In the following 4 months, we ended up costing the HOA over $4,000 in lawyers' fees fighting this battle. For reference, the entire HOA income was $25,000 a year. When it came time for our official HOA hearing over the matter, we had successfully postponed it, thanks to an attorney friend, 3 separate times. There were over 100 back and forth emails with the HOA attorney and ourselves. Each one of those emails was a 15-minute expense from the HOA. And I was happy to follow up a follow-up question with another follow-up question if it meant the HOA attorney was going to keep billing them. Did I say follow-up enough times? We didn't actually want to take this battle to court, so we ended up removing the cameras the day of the hearing to prevent being fined, even if the fine wouldn't hold up in court. The HOA decided in the hearing that we were guilty, surprise, surprise, of violating the bylaw. They couldn't fine us, as the bylaws don't allow a fine until after a hearing has been held, and the cameras were already removed. In the end, the punishment was a sternly written piece of paper on the attorney's letterhead, delivered via certified mail, that stated that we were not allowed to place a camera on our home that had the potential to invade a neighbor's privacy. Keep in mind, the letter specifically stated the camera could not be placed on our home. We left the cameras off the home for about 4 months, until the annual HOA meeting. You should have seen the look on the HOA board's faces when I asked them to explain the $4,000 line item for attorney's fees that simply stated title searches and attorney fees. The board actually tried to hide the fact that they spent $4,000 trying to fight us over a couple of cameras by putting the fees in as title searches. Needless to say, that meeting did not go well for them. About half of them lost their positions on the board. The other half, including Karen unfortunately, remained on the board. About a week after the annual meeting, we installed new cameras, facing the same direction as the prior cameras. Only this time, we installed a post in the ground and mounted the cameras to the post. The admonishment we received after the hearing specifically stated that we were not allowed to install cameras on our home and said nothing about putting them on a post. They did send a letter to try to tell us to remove the cameras, but a sternly worded response indicating that we were prepared to fight them actually worked this time around. I guess they didn't want to spend another $4,000 fighting us. We didn't receive any follow-up responses, and the cameras on the post are still installed to this day, over 2 years and running strong. My son's girlfriend is hogging up all of our water. My husband thinks I'm in the right, but my niece helped me make this post to help see what other people think. I, 52 female, have 3 sons, ages ranging from 13 to 20. My oldest son, who's 20, has a girlfriend who's 19 that hangs around our house a lot. It's a really small house and doesn't have a lot of space. She's a nice girl, but gets on my nerves sometimes because she's always over. I really don't think she's right for my son either. Our tap water has a weird aftertaste, so I order gallon water bottles and use them to refill a big glass bowl with a tap. It is not cheap to get water and other groceries delivered, so I tell my sons, husband, and the girlfriend to be courteous of the other people who live here and not use up the water as it runs out fast in our big household. Yesterday, I caught her filling up her big metal water bottle with the jug water, and I calmly told her that other people live here too, and she shouldn't hog the water all to herself. She was rather short with me and said something along the lines of, "Actually, this water bottle is big enough to hold all the water someone should be drinking in a day. I'm not hogging water, I'm just trying to stay hydrated." I found her tone to be disrespectful and ordered her to leave. She scoffed and went back to my son's room. That's when I really got frustrated. I opened the door and told her she has to leave. My son got really angry with me and told me that his girlfriend didn't do anything wrong, and why is it a crime for her to drink water? I explained that I order this water for our family to use, not leeches who hang around all day rent-free. My son's girlfriend got a little teary-eyed and left the room and went out the front door without saying anything. My son told me that I was a major jerk and I should have just minded my own business. I think she's just wasteful and a brat. Am I the jerk? Okay, you're the jerk, but I'm going to try to explain why in a constructive way so that hopefully you understand all sides of this. First of all, you have the right to lay down the law of your land in your house. That includes who is in it, who's using your supplies, how they're used, and what conduct you expect from guests. Your guests, including your son, also have the basic human right to take offense at your hostility. Nobody likes to be treated like a burden or an imposition. And you've put this girl in a difficult situation where she feels like in order to enjoy her boyfriend, she has to put up with your antagonism, justified or not. That's exhausting for everyone. The fact is that you're 52 and she's 19, and as the owner of your house, you need to be the one who communicates your desires clearly, not passive-aggressively. You're trying to play both sides by subtly driving her away with your antagonism while also not giving your son cause to be angry with you. The absolute kindest way I can put this is that what you're doing right now is reactionary communication instead of preemptive communication. You clearly have a problem with this girl and everybody knows it. By being passive-aggressive and at times openly hostile to her in order to drive her away, you're disrespecting your son's choice and trying to impose your will on him. This isn't about the water, it's about you wanting her out of your house, and because you're not clearly putting down boundaries, these little things are adding up and blowing over. She's 19 and likely doesn't understand why you're so hostile. If you would rather not have her in your house all the time, communicate that with her. Tell her it's stressing you out to have guests over all the time and that you're feeling claustrophobic. There are many direct, mature ways you can handle this situation, but it starts with you, not her. You're the one with the problem. Edit. I wanted to respond to one comment I keep seeing popping up. Which person OP should be taking her complaints to, her son or his girlfriend? To be honest, when I reread the post, the proprietary tone OP took when speaking about him, I don't think she's right for him, suggested a couple of things to me. Her methods with communicating with her sons are outdated and new adult boundaries need to be drawn so that they can coexist in a healthy way. And the value she places in their relationship is preventing her from expressing her frustrations honestly. She doesn't mind her son being there in that small space, she minds his girlfriend. In an either-or situation where she forces him to choose, she might not like the choice he makes. Instead of taking that risk, She settled for a passive-aggressive antagonism that pressure-cooked the situation up to a point where everything exploded over boiling water. My first paying job, and the person thought they would be clever paying me. I've always been interested in electronics and did a lot of reading and studying on my own, and I was very good at buying things at swap meets and repairing them and reselling them as a teen. My first real paying job, a friend of my mom knew a guy who ran a place that supplied answering machines to businesses. They were new tech back at that point in time. He said he was desperate for someone who could fix them as he had ones with issues spilling over the shelves, so I went to see him. It was an interesting meeting, a middle-aged businessman and me. I was 15 or so. We kind of eye each other, and he asks me if I can fix them. I was pretty sure I could, and when he pulled out the service manuals for them, he had a couple that were based on the same base. I was quite sure. So he asked me what I wanted an hour, and I was used to getting $3 an hour for watching the kiddo next door on occasion, so I asked for that. He pondered that for a minute and made me an offer that I could not refuse. $10 cash for each one I fix. I quickly agreed to stop by after school the next day with my tools to dig in. The next day I show up and he takes me in the back, and sure enough, he has a couple of big sets of industrial shelves overflowing with the things. I start pulling them off and looking at them. He gives me a smile and drifts off and leaves me to it. I quickly discovered this guy had no tech skills whatsoever. None. Most of them had a brainlessly simple problem. The outgoing message was kept on a big loose loop of tape with a metallic splice at the end. It was a pretty simple problem. The splices and the posts got dirty and did not make good contact, and the tape would just go on forever. About 3 minutes with some alcohol and a Q-tip cleaning those parts, as well as the other things in the tape path, not only had them going again, but sounding like new. I cleaned the front panels up with some spray cleaner and hit the wooden cases with some lemon pledge, and they would look like new. I spent more time carefully coiling up the power cords than repairing them, but when I was done, they looked and sounded like new. The owner came back to check on me a few hours later to see if I was going to be able to crank one out for him that night, and I pointed to a pile of 5 or so, and I told him to check them out. His eyes just about popped out of his head. I got nearly 10 done a night for a while. It did slow down a bit once I got the easy ones knocked out, but I just kept picking the low-hanging fruit and learning more and more about them, and getting deeper and deeper into them. He also had units coming in all the time, so I did still have some easy ones mixed in with the bunch. I thought he was going to lose it when we settled up at the end of the first week. I had spent like 3 afternoons there and got near 30 of them fixed. It was a really good payday. He was not super happy with our agreement, but he had proposed it, and he had someone who was kicking butt getting them fixed, so he was cornered into honoring it. It was not lost on him that he could have been paying me like $12 a night, and I would have been happy with that, but he thought he would get the better of me. Am I the jerk for not helping my wife and the kids when she wanted to keep them home from daycare and I have to work? So my wife and I have 2 kids, one who's a bit over 2 years old, and the other is 5 months old. I work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 at home. Occasionally, I go into the office. My wife is on maternity leave and taking care of the 5-month-old. I take care of the baby for overnights, walkings, and feedings. The 2-year-old is in daycare. Whether I send my kid to daycare 1 day or 5 days a week for 1 hour or 8, it costs the same. My wife likes to pick up our toddler from daycare around 3:15 every day instead of letting me go when I finish work, because she doesn't want our kid to be there so much during the day. The problem is, I'm left watching the baby for the 45 minutes while she's gone, and then for the hour that she's taking care of both of them, she gets overwhelmed, stressed, very annoyed at me and our kids. It's just not great overall. Every day, my wife tells me that she's exhausted. She has no time to herself. She doesn't get things done that she needs to. She's overwhelmed, just wants to relax when the baby naps, etc. I try to help out with the baby during the day when I can, like feeding and putting him down during my lunch break. I just try to be available throughout the day if my wife needs me. Anyways, on to the main point of this post. Last night, my wife tells me she wants to keep the toddler home from daycare today. I tell her that I didn't think that was a good idea. How is she going to feed and put down the baby for a nap while taking care of the toddler? She already gets stressed and overwhelmed just looking after the baby. Why put herself through more stress? I told her that I could not take the day off of work and she would be alone taking care of both kids. She said she really wanted to spend time with both kids and felt like she didn't see our toddler enough. Fine, no problem. If she wants to do this, it's up to her. I reiterated that I would not be around to help. Cut to this morning. I got up at midnight and 4 a.m. to take care of the baby. I get both kids ready and I made breakfast for everyone. I start work, and sure enough, 20 minutes after I started, I hear my wife trying to tell our toddler that she just needs to go in the other room and put the baby down for a nap. Of course, the toddler doesn't want to leave her side. Toddler starts crying. I can hear my wife getting frustrated. Wife finally leaves to put the baby down and comes back. She now has to juggle going back and forth trying to settle the baby by putting the pacifier back in. We're starting some sleep training. And the toddler who wants all of her attention. Finally, baby gets settled. Wife is obviously stressed and tired, and it's 9:45 a.m. She comes into my office where I'm working and asks, did I not hear her struggling? Why did I not come and help? Am I the jerk for telling my wife, I told you so? That I said I would not be around to help, and this is what you get? That she should have let me bring our toddler to daycare? Not the jerk. You have set your wife up for success, and she's choosing to fail. Listen, I don't have kids for a reason, and I absolutely appreciate how much work kids are. But your wife's struggle seems excessive. Lots of people take care of 2 kids at once, and they don't have meltdowns. And then, she doesn't even have to take care of 2 kids at once. And the one day she chooses to do so, she can't even make it 4 hours. Time for a sit down. She's on leave to take care of the kids. The toddler has daycare so she doesn't get overwhelmed. She needs to come up with a system and stick to it, and it can't involve interrupting your work. Your work is the current thing keeping a roof over your head and providing for the family. And there's no reason you should stop work to help her with problems she's creating herself. I can't find much sympathy for her at all. My mom raised me and my sister, who were 2 years apart, and she often took care of my cousins as well. Your wife needs to get it together. No jerks here. Your wife is suffering from mom guilt, which is a societal pressure to do everything all at once with a smile and high efficiency. It's ridiculous and unreasonable, but still a valid emotion that you might understand as well. Instead of the complete logical approach of trying to prove your point, take into consideration that your youngest isn't even 5 months, so hormones and stress are playing a part in this. Talk to your wife to see how to handle this as a team. Offer some empathy and see if she'll open up about why she wants to keep putting this pressure on herself. Remind her that she's the backbone of the house, and if she's stressed and overwhelmed, then things crumble. Give her space to take care of herself so she can be the best mom she wants to be. But if you do the "I told you so" game, it will cause resentment all around, and everyone loses. Am I the jerk for telling my son he's delusional to think that I'll approve of his marriage? My son, who's 25, introduced me to his fiancée, Sarah, who's 20. He informed me yesterday that he was going to marry her. He's dated her for about 7 months in total. I was introduced to her 2 months ago. I'll say outright, I don't like Sarah. She's messy, and by messy, I mean she looks like she lives in a dumpster. Rude. She'll go off on you when you eat the last of the chocolate, even if it's your own chocolate, because she wanted it. She did this to my daughter. I saw it with my own eyes. She's wasteful and quite conceited. My son and her are banned from family gatherings after a particular incident. I've told my son the truth about it when he asked for my honest opinion after I met her. But in the end, he's an adult, and I don't control his life. When he told me about the engagement, he asked me, since it's been 2 months, if I approve of her now. I laughed a bit and told him, no, I don't. And he got mad and asked me why. So I gave him the following reasons. 1. They're 20 and 25 and getting married, which I think is a bit too early since they've known each other for around 7 months. 2. Neither of them have a stable income or know how to cook and clean, so they're hitting a disaster zone. 3. They're not going to have a prenup. 4. Again, I don't like her. But again, I told him he's an adult, so it's his choice. I also told him they were going to have to move out because I have 3 other kids to look after, and Sarah is not at all nice or kind to them, and I won't support him and Sarah, just if they're in an emergency. Right now, I fully pay for and house him. He pays no rent, and he has a part-time job, and his monthly salary, if they budgeted, will give them more than enough for essentials plus savings. Sarah owns her own apartment, so no rent. Plus, I'm fully paying for his college, so no loans to worry about. But other than that, they have to figure out something themselves. I also told him not to expect me to pay for his wedding, because A, they want an extravagant one, and B, with the cost of living rising, I want to save enough money to make sure my youngest, who's in 8th grade right now, will have the same opportunity as him. He got mad at me and left. I recounted this to a few of my coworkers, and they think I'm in the wrong. So I've come here to ask some strangers. Am I wrong? You're the jerk. You're working hard at making your son kick you out of his life. The only positive thing here is that he will be free of you much earlier than without that. I'm sick of being screamed at by entitled people that don't get their way. So my boss has us not seat anyone past a quarter to close. From that point until 5 minutes to close, we are to go only. After that, we're essentially closed, but we make exceptions, especially if someone comes in at the last minute and just wants like a cup of soup or some meatballs or something of the like. Monday night, it's 8:48. We close at 9. 3 people come inside, and I immediately tell them that we are to go only. We aren't seating anymore for the night. Pretty much everything except the floors are done, and the kitchen is 2/3 of the way done cleaning up. Anyway, it's 2 women and 1 guy. The first woman is the main aggressor here. She starts trying to barter with us to let her sit, essentially, before going nuclear. Well, why can't we sit? There's people still in here. Me. Ma'am, all the people in here are finished eating and about to leave. Stuff like that. I proceed to tell her I'm sorry. It's not my rule. Our boss doesn't want us sitting until the last minute because we're a local place, and he doesn't want to have to pay the entire staff for over an hour after close because you decided you can't go out to eat until 10 minutes before the restaurant closes. This woman literally stomps her foot and starts throwing a tantrum like a kid. This is BS. I work in restaurants. Nowhere else does this. There are still people in here. You should let us sit anyway. The other woman in the group is peppering her friend's tirade with insults and screams of her own. This is horrible service. How dare you not seat us? I offered them to go like 6 times, but it wasn't good enough. This entire time I'm staying calm and apologizing. It's not my rule. I'm not doing this just to be rude. They go to stomp out the door, and they hilariously try to slam the door, which has the thing that makes it shut slowly because it's glass. I don't know if that made them madder or what. As the door starts to shut, I'm ashamed to admit I lost my patience again and I snapped at them without raising my voice. You don't need to be so rude. A guy comes to grab his to-go, and she screams in his face. They're refusing to sit us. They're to-go only, so I hope you don't want to sit and eat. They wouldn't let us sit. The poor guy just shrinks away and comes inside. The lady's friend comes back to the door and opens it again. We're never coming back here, she shrieks into the restaurant. I feel bad for all the customers still in the restaurant. They all just think this lady is nuts. After they leave, I lose it a little and kind of started to break down in front of my coworker. I'm so sick of all these people screaming at me for stuff that isn't my fault or that I didn't do. I went outside and called my mom and cried. I've been doing this for over 10 years, and I've never had so many rude customers the entire time I've been doing this as I have in the last 3 months. Can someone please tell me what's going on? Am I the jerk for telling my nephew he is his father's only heir? Recently, my older brother passed. At that time, he had become engaged to a woman he had only rekindled a relationship with 4 months prior and after having been apart for more than 20 years. Prior to my brother's passing, he had become upset with my nephew, his only child, for failing to return 2 phone messages and voiced his frustration to our mother and stepfather. On the day he passed, our mother was extremely cruel in how she told my nephew that this had happened. She even bragged to me about it and reenacted her conversation with my nephew before exclaiming that she was less than warm about it. She also informed my nephew that the fiancé was going to inherit everything, but asked if there was anything of my brother's that my nephew wanted. My mother lied to my nephew. My brother passed without a will, which means my nephew inherits everything and all decisions are his to be made. I told my mother that's the law in our state, but my mother stated emphatically that my nephew wasn't getting anything, along with my stepfather claiming that my brother told him he could have my brother's money. Another lie. I was absolutely disgusted by what my mother and stepfather said and immediately left their home and haven't been back. Over the next few days, I tried in vain to reason with my mother, but she would not back down from trying to give all of my brother's money and possessions to the fiancé and ensuring that my nephew only received a few token pieces of my brother's estate. So I made the decision to tell my nephew the truth. Now my mother, stepfather, and brother's fiancé are furious with me and said that I had no right and should have stayed out of the situation. Telling my nephew the truth has caused a huge rift within my family, and I feel responsible. I fear my actions may have created a bigger issue that my family may not be able to overcome. If I had asked an attorney to explain the law to my mother or taken a more diplomatic course of action, we might have been able to grieve my brother's passing as a family. Instead, neither I nor my nephew was informed of my brother's memorial service, and only learned of it after it had taken place. At this point, I no longer communicate with my mother and stepfather, which seems to be the case with most of the extended family. Am I the jerk for taking matters into my own hands and destroying what was left of my grieving family? You may have prevented your mother from committing fraud and going to jail. The only way you are a jerk is if you waited too long to notify an attorney of what's going on so that they can get something in place to stop her, and anything given away cannot be recovered. Your mom is a piece of work. I can't imagine anything a grandson could do that would make me be cruel to him the way that your mother was. Not the jerk. Stay-at-home partner wants me to help with the baby, but I work 100 hours a week. I know the title sounds bad, but I'm finding myself in a very difficult situation, and I'm genuinely not sure if I'm in the wrong here. I, 27 male, am a surgical resident. My partner, 27 female, was a teacher, but is currently a stay-at-home mother to our newborn child. We met in college and have been together for just over 7 years now. Last year, she took a pregnancy test and found out that she was pregnant. We were both happy, but also concerned about taking care of a child. My main concern when we found out was that I could not help out with the kid because I work between 80 to 100 hours a week. However, we both love each other and did want a family, so in the end, we decided to keep it, and then she would take time off of work while I was completing my residency and take care of the baby. I would complete my residency, and then, after having somewhat more humane hours, I would obviously split child-caring duties equally with her so that she can also return to work. It's been 3 months since our kid was born now, and things have been rough to say the least. I'm still working nearly 100 hours a week, and I'm constantly at the brink of exhaustion. If anything, my workload has increased since then, as I'm now learning how to perform larger operations. My sleep is almost non-existent, and I'm constantly under intense pressure due to my work environment. Things have obviously been rough for her too. The pregnancy and delivery were without complication, but it goes without saying that it was still hugely taxing on her mentally and physically. Recently, my partner has been asking me to take care of our kid when I get home. Initially, I helped her without hesitation, feeling like it was within my capacity and wanting to support her. But in the past few weeks, she's been asking more and more of me, and a few days ago, she demanded I take care of our kid immediately as I walked into the door. I hadn't even had time to take off my shoes yet, and when I said, "Just give me a second," she told me to hurry up. I later learned that she had an incredibly rough day and was just at capacity, but in the moment, I was so caught off guard, I yelled back at her to back off. I was too exhausted to deal with it then, so I locked myself in the bathroom to take a long shower and calm down. We later talked about what had happened and apologized to each other, but during it, she essentially told me that she felt like I wasn't doing enough to take care of the kid and that it was our responsibility equally. I told her that I felt like I was already doing more than we agreed on and that I can literally not do any more than what I am currently doing. After talking and arguing about this for about 2 hours, we still couldn't come to an agreement and decided to leave the topic for now. So, am I the jerk for not wanting to take on a larger parenting role during residency? Friends I've talked to seem split on the matter. Not the jerk. This is a case of two people drowning and arguing over who has their head up out of the water a few inches more than the other. You have a newborn, you're working 100 hours a week, and a wife who is most likely so overwhelmed she can't see straight. Both of you are sleep deprived and not in your right mind. What you need is help. I don't care who said they would do what before the baby came. It's here now, and it's not what either of you expected. It's time to start from scratch and use your limited energy to find solutions to give you both reprieve. This right here. No one in this situation is the jerk. They're just both exhausted, doing very taxing and demanding jobs and tasks and need help. I know OP said they can't afford help right now, but they both need to figure out something before this tears them apart. Call for reinforcements. Get a cleaning lady or a person once a week to deal with the household chores, vacuuming, dusting, doing some laundry, ironing, scrubbing bathrooms, well worth the money. Call in grandma or family and friends if possible to watch the baby while wife can just have a nap and maybe even have someone to visit with. Or find a responsible teenager who has experience with babies who can come over a few hours a week and watch the baby or watch TV while wife catches a nap. If childcare options are really good, try to allow your wife to escape child-free for a few hours to the gym, yoga, dance, or whatever that may allow her a bit of child-free physical activity that can help reset her mental and physical health. Being home with a baby is tough. Try to find a few hours each week for you as a couple or family, even if it's just to meet for lunch, if possible. Arrange for groceries to be bought online and delivered. Walmart Click and Collect can be picked up by an Uber or taxi and delivered to the door. Some grocery stores deliver. Find out what system works. Encourage your wife to find other moms in the same position. Having a support system with other parents or babies allows her to actually visit someone who doesn't mind if baby tags along and cries the whole time. Plus, as the kids get older, it allows them to have other kids in their lives. And offer your wife the opportunity to put baby in childcare and go back to work. Not every person is cut out to be at home with their kids 24/7. Doesn't mean she's a bad parent, but she re-energizes by outside of home interaction. Not the jerk. You're both in a hard situation, but you can get through it. Don't be afraid to call for reinforcements. Also, check with the hospital you're doing a residency at. Do they have a childcare program that you could use, even part-time, or can they recommend one? Just start brainstorming ideas with your wife on how to make this work. Write down good ideas and some absolutely silly ones too. It actually will help even if you are met with glares. Then after you have tons of ideas, serious and ridiculous, you go through the ideas together and start crossing some off to narrow down the list. Don't narrow it down too much. You want plans A through E because sometimes plans change. And try to agree to help your wife figure out what she needs at this point to be happy and how you both can make it work. Good luck, OP. Karen demands my asthma inhaler. So the story goes, me, my friend, and our significant others planned a road trip for a couple days. We all had 3 months to plan ahead. For context, my friend's boyfriend and I have asthma. My asthma is so severe that I have disabled parking and an SDIT. I don't know how severe his is, but I feel it's relevant to add that he smokes. Almost every time we all hang out, he asks to use my inhalers, and I give them to him without a second thought. Before we left for the trip, I let my friend know that I didn't have the means to be sharing my inhalers with him. As you've probably already guessed, he asked to use one of my inhalers on the last day of the trip. I gave him one of them to use, and I thought nothing of it until last night, 3 weeks later. So my friend comes to me and she says that as her friend, I could have at least given him a few puffs off my inhaler. I told her that she was coming across as selfish for being upset with me over the inhalers that I rely on and pay for, and I didn't understand how she had any place to be upset when I literally shared my inhaler when he asked. She said that the inhaler that I shared with him wasn't my rescue inhaler, and therefore didn't help him, and she had to watch him suffer on the way home because of it. Asthma medicine shortage aside, I really just don't understand how I was wrong for being concerned about my health too. I love her and we've been friends for a long time, but I just don't see how I was wrong for giving him one inhaler over the other when he didn't even bother to specify which one he wanted. So, am I the jerk for not giving him my rescue inhaler? Edit. A couple of things to add. I know it's not sanitary. I disinfect the inhalers every time they get used. I know you're not supposed to share things like this. It's just not easy to tell someone, hey, I know you can't breathe that great, but I can't give you something that may or may not help you. They've been together for around 3 years and they have kids together. I made sure to establish that I will not be sharing my inhalers with him or anyone else ever again. I haven't yet, but I will be establishing that our friendship is either done or on a break until they learn to appreciate the things I do for them, including, but not limited to, putting their health over mine. There's been a few people who have wondered why I gave him one inhaler over the rescue, even though he never specified. Since this was a while ago, I don't fully remember the details, but I think it was in the morning, and I'm not a morning person. I also have ADHD, so my daily is next to me at night, so I remember to take it in the morning. It was the inhaler that was closest to me, and I wasn't in the mood to put forth the effort to get my rescue inhaler out of my purse or duffel bag. Maybe I was being subconsciously passive-aggressive, I understand that now. Maybe everyone's the jerk in this situation, but my conclusion is this. It's just as much my responsibility to take care of my health as it is his responsibility to take care of his. I would never just let my friend get hurt, but I can do that without putting my life at risk too. Thank you all, you've been a great help. Your asthma requires disabled parking. His asthma allows him to smoke. You are not the same. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. Honestly, you need to cut this friend out of your life immediately. She's more worried about her jerk boyfriend's suffering than about your very life. Doctors don't issue prescriptions for rescue inhalers for funsies. They do it because you could literally get hurt if you have bad asthma attacks. She may have been your friend for a long time, but our actions always show our true values more than any words. Her actions scream, I I don't care if you could get hurt from an asthma attack, as long as my boyfriend is okay. Clearly, her boyfriend's asthma is not serious enough for a doctor to prescribe him a rescue inhaler. Or he doesn't care since he smokes all the time, which is the worst thing you can do with asthma. It's not your job to keep her boyfriend from suffering. Drop the jerk friend and her equally jerk boyfriend. He's a jerk for smoking, etc., while he has asthma and relying on other people to give him rescue inhalers. My daughter expects me to pay for her college, and I don't know what to do. I, 52 male, have 2 kids, a son who's 26 and a daughter who's 19. When my son went to college, I thought college would open up opportunities and he was supposed to major in computer science, but he failed a bunch of classes and changed his major to something less lucrative. He went out of state, and I now realize that this was a poor investment. I didn't want to make the same mistakes with my daughter. She also wants to do computer science, and last year she got into a foreign university in the UK, which she says is like Stanford over there, Cambridge. I didn't want the same thing to happen to her, so I told her that I can't help her pay for that and to go to a local state university or community college, then transfer. She ended up not going and deferred her admission to see if this year she can get a loan, which I'm not for, but it is her life, or if she can get a scholarship for a better American college. She seems a little annoyed at me since effectively her brother got more money, but that was before I knew better. I can afford the same for her, but it would be tighter now, and I don't want that same thing to happen, especially if it would be for a foreign degree. I suspect the same could happen to her since her brother was typically the brighter one while she just pushed herself the last years of school. Am I the jerk here? You're the jerk. Gee, my daughter wants to go to one of the top universities in the world, but she's not the smart one, and since my son couldn't hack it, clearly she won't either. Good luck maintaining that relationship. You made her give up Cambridge when you could have given her the money as you did with her brother? And you're even asking if you're the jerk? Of course you're the jerk. And even saying your older kid was the brighter one and she doesn't deserve the same amount of money because it's sure she's gonna fail? OMG, what a jerk. You're the jerk. If she gets into Cambridge, you should pay. It's a lot cheaper than Stanford. And you should not punish her for her brother's mistakes, for goodness sake. Community college is not at all like Cambridge. You sound quite ignorant on top of being the jerk. Such a jerk. So you're punishing her because of his poor choices? Also, you're essentially saying she's the dumber one. I'm guessing she's more than a little annoyed with you. Lastly, people who push themselves frequently fare better than those who are born brighter. You're the jerk. Don't you realize that Cambridge, UK is one of the most prestigious universities in the world? It's very hard to get in, so your daughter must be really talented. And you can afford it, but denied it to her because her brother was not a success? A Cambridge degree is one of the best investments there is. And by the way, your kids are not investments. Buy some stock or real estate if you want to invest. Shame on you, OP. Not the jerk. I'm sorry all of these kids on Reddit who know nothing about finances are laying into you for your rational decision making. If it were up to them, everything would be handed to them for free by their parents. Sadly, these kids are a part of a generation who feel entitled to handouts. As a successful landlord and investor myself, with a master's in personal finance and a background in investment banking, everything you're saying here makes perfect sense and is very logical. No matter how bright or not so bright your daughter is, all kids should start at a community college to make sure they can hack it. You'll end up paying a fraction of the price you would for a major university. You've also learned this lesson with your son. If you repeat this mistake, then that's on you. If she proves she's college material, which no, getting accepted into a school does not automatically mean you can hack it there, then after 2 years she can transfer and you'll pay for wherever she wants to go. Super simple, and what any parent who's planning to pay for their child's college education should be doing. A valuable lesson I've learned through life is that you never want to go with the flow and do what everyone else is doing and recommending. That's how you end up like all of these lost, confused, angry, and miserable losers on Reddit. Never let these morons influence your decisions with their idiocracy. This site is nothing but a competition for upvotes, and the way you get them is by making yourself appear as relatable as possible to the rest of these morons. AKA, despise people who are financially successful and or who have actual morals. Speaking common sense will get you nothing but dislikes, which is why that's all I ever get on here. Unless we're on a finance or investment subreddit. For some reason, I actually get more upvotes than most others on there. Gee, It's almost as if the people who actually take the time to educate themselves on how money actually works tend to have more common sense than the rest of the idiots here on Reddit. Whoever would have thought that? Man loses it when he has to wait 5 minutes for valet. So I work the night audit shift, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. This is one of my favorite stories because of the karmic justice was hilarious at the end. I deal with a crazy amount of problems because I work at a 4-star luxury hotel that's also in the middle of a downtown city and connected to a convention center. I literally deal with everyone, from the homeless to celebrities. This isn't my craziest story, but the funniest when it comes to instant karma. So most of my problems usually happen right at the beginning of my shift. It's when late check-ins start finishing up, but only with the drunk and the rowdy and the occasional late flight. This man was of the drunk and rowdy nature. He was middle-aged, looked like your typical Marvel fan from the shorts, the shirt, the beard, and the glasses. Reeked of neckbeard. We all know the type. I'm a nerd too, but the kind that showers and has friends and boundaries. I don't work alone, but was alone at the front desk. I'm 26, female, and he comes up to me to complain. He's checking in and stating valet wasn't there and he's been waiting for 20 minutes. I call valet and find out that he's only been waiting for 5 and assure him that they're finishing up with a couple guests and will park his car. He would not let it go. He starts going on a rant about my terrible customer service, how there has to be something I should do for him to make up for this, how completely unacceptable it is that he had to wait at all for a luxury hotel valet and thought that was the whole point of us being luxury. Clearly hasn't been to a hotel in general, never mind a nice one. I told him I talked to the valet and it's normal for people to have to wait for others who were there first. There was nothing I could do. It wasn't even an amount of time that I could fake being sympathetic for. He was clearly just a jerk. He then keeps demanding an explanation from me as to why he was waiting, now trying to tell me I'm lying to him and they were clearly sleeping or on break. He then tells me to just cancel his reservation. I said okay. The valet was ready for you, but if this isn't what you needed, I will go ahead and cancel. So I do, and I hand him the printed cancellation. He still won't leave. Now he's standing at the front desk staring me down and repeatedly asking me why he had to wait for valet and to admit that they were sleeping. I tell him he no longer has a reservation with us and I will call security to escort him out as he is no longer a guest. He says fine. So I call security and he still won't leave, starts yelling at them that he won't leave unless we call the cops. Man literally asked us to call the cops on him. He then looked at me and was like, "You're not gonna win this, you know." Me not even knowing there was something to win here. So cops get there, they come up to me just to ask what's going on, and they feel bad because they know the dude is just being a jerk. I tell them he literally told us to call the cops to make him leave. Cops go deal with him. They tell him not only are we not reinstating his reservation, which I guess he was trying to get them to do, but he had to call an Uber home and had to abandon his car at the hotel because he was too drunk to drive. The cops literally made him call an Uber in front of them and get into it and watch him leave. So this dude clearly had some sort of power struggle thing going on. He thought he could just pick on some random hotel worker and instead got the biggest walk of shame I've ever seen. And also he had to pay for an Uber, a cancellation fee, and who knows what else to get his car back. All just to be a smug jerk. It was great. Now I just wish all the jerks got a police escort. Am I the jerk for announcing my pregnancy immediately after my sister? Husband and I have been trying for our second baby for 2.5 years. I'm incredibly grateful to now be 13 weeks pregnant and have been looking forward to sharing that news with my family. On Friday, we had dinner with my family, my sister, her boyfriend, and our parents, and we decided to share our news then. I decided to wait until dessert so that we could leave shortly after telling everyone. Obviously, it's exciting news, but I was worried about all the emotions that could surface for myself and my husband. Right after we sat down to eat, my sister announced that she and her boyfriend are expecting their first child. I was thrilled for her and congratulated her, as did the rest of the family. Once things had settled down, I didn't want to waste the opportunity to have everyone together and thought it would be a good opportunity to keep the joy flowing. So I shared that I'm pregnant as well. Our parents were so excited to be having 2 new grandbabies just a month apart, and I was super happy that my kids would have a new cousin. My sister was happy for me, but she left very soon after dinner and didn't stay for dessert. She called me this afternoon and told me that as happy as she was for me, she felt that I had done a crappy thing by taking away her moment. She pointed out that this is my second baby, and when I announced for the first time, I didn't have to share with anyone. I didn't want to apologize because I didn't feel I'd done anything wrong, but she finished out the phone call by saying that she didn't think I was really even happy for her if I couldn't have let her have that moment and taken another for myself later on. That really stung. I truly didn't see it that way. I saw it as sharing joy, not stealing it. I also see each pregnancy as being unique, so I don't feel that it was right of her to say I shouldn't have said anything because it was my second baby. Honestly, I think she might be kind of hormonal. But I also want to understand my sister, and I know I'm not going to get anywhere asking her about it. So I want to be enlightened. Am I the jerk for announcing my pregnancy immediately after my sister? ETA. I'm visiting from Los Angeles. My sister lives in New Jersey, and our parents live in New York City. So here's the real truth. It doesn't actually matter who's the jerk, because that's going to be an inherently subjective matter that depends on your personal views of how pregnancy announcement should go. What's important here is that your sister is upset, and you don't have to understand why. So swallow your pride and apologize to her. You're the jerk for exactly what she said. You could have waited for a different day, and I don't think it's bad that she wanted to be in the spotlight a little bit. Like she said, it was her first baby, and she wanted people to be happy that they're having a kid. With that said, disregarding her emotions as her just being hormonal is kind of mean. Did you see her edit though? She flew across the country to see them, LA to New York, and might not get another chance in person. I still think she could have done it on a different day or time instead of during the dinner. Also, personally, and this is probably affecting my decision, but I don't think it has to be in person. She should have let her sister have a moment in the spotlight. This greed for attention is getting way out of hand. Your sister does not need or deserve an entire day of attention from everyone just because she managed to conceive a kid. Everyone is happy for her. That should be enough. Her jealousy of you also having a pregnancy to celebrate is childish, ridiculous, and narcissistic. You're not the jerk. For sure. I don't understand this attitude at all. I would have been thrilled if one of my sisters had been pregnant at the same time as me. It would have been a blast. Also, the attention hog thing will totally still be fed throughout the sister's pregnancy. Her parents, in-laws, etc. will still fuss over her like crazy. The attention is not limited to the time of the announcement. Not the jerk. You're the jerk for reducing your sister's feelings to, she might be kinda hormonal. That's very dismissive, and you have the same hormones going on right now too. Announcing right after your sister wasn't the worst thing, but it would have been much more considerate to wait at least a day. Let her have one night of feeling special. Have a family dinner the next weekend and announce. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her sister? Please let us know. Why can't OP's sister just be happy for her? People make way too big a deal of being the center of attention and getting the spotlight. I can't imagine how OP's sister was during her wedding. One by one. I was recently reminded of this story from a colleague. I work in contracts, meaning my department audits signed documents to make sure everything is legal and compliant with our policies. We have a very old system that we use. Think early DOS, like a black screen with white words and you type everything manually. Looks like Pong. So typically what happens is, I would get a contract for specific mechanical equipment and I would review to make sure it's possible in a physical sense and that the finances also make sense. Occasionally, we will encounter a situation where we need to update our system to allow a contract to go through. This would be if we sold an older equipment that we no longer build but had a few spare parts lying around. Or if a client bought our equipment from a third-party provider but wants us to service it since we're the official company that makes this stuff. It's kind of like a car dealership selling a used car that they don't make anymore. It's still part of their brand, but they might not necessarily have software to support it since it's so outdated. Trying to explain as best I can. When we have these types of contracts with older equipment, all we have to do is send a note to a person in a specific department and ask her to open the system temporarily to allow these devices to be added and serviced. The way we send this request is that we fill out a form and we submit it to this lady. This lady is something. She's a combination of a power-hungry overlord and a scared, pathetic mouse. It's very interesting to see. I sometimes play a game to bet on which mode she will respond with. She's very much a bully who cries when she gets called out for being a bully and then says she's being bullied. Yeah, she's fun. So anyways, one day I received 85 new contracts, same client, all for used equipment that we don't make anymore and have not for years. Someone found a whole bunch of them for dirt cheap and bought them, and now they want us to service them. Cool. Good find, Mr. Client. We will be happy to help. Typically, you submit one request form per device. Filling out this form is a bit of a pain because it's a very manual process and a bit time-consuming. I like to be efficient and make life easier, so I did some reviewing and noticed that there are really only like 5 models of machines, 85 different serial numbers, but only 5 types. So I sent off a quick email saying the following. Hi lady, not her name, but I'm calling her that here. I have a whole bunch of machines to add to the system, but I don't want to submit 85 different tickets to you. I checked out and saw there's only 5 model types. Can I send you the request in batches by model? Might make our lives a bit easier than going one by one. Now this lady is notorious for sticking to the rules. I don't usually mind because rules exist for a reason. However, they were also created by people and therefore can be changed by people. In this instance, I was hoping lady would understand that I'm trying to save us both time. Nope. Her response was, "It is unacceptable that you think you have the right to change the way we do things, especially that you don't even work in my department and have no concept of what it is that I do. We do not work however we want. We have procedures to follow, and if you are unfamiliar with these procedures, then it is clear to me that you need training." A new level of jerk has been achieved. You want me to follow procedures? You don't want to understand that I'm trying to help us both? Let's go then. I spend the next 3 hours creating my emails and ticket requests, but I didn't submit them as I went. Oh no, I waited until I had 85 of them ready to go. Once they were loaded, I spent a hilarious moment clicking send. It was like I was launching little torpedoes every time I clicked send, each causing small devastation as they build up in her inbox and overshadow anything else that might have been in her queue. Also, I know she keeps the volume on, so I knew that she'd be hearing that ding sound that annoys Outlook users everywhere. One by one, 85 different requests were running to her inbox like moths to a flame. I waited for the inevitable tantrum. "Hey, I see you're sending me a bunch of requests. Can't you just bunch them together? This is a lot, and it's messing up my system now due to the constant influx of emails and tickets." Did I forget to mention that our laptops are also super old? That many emails in one shot most definitely froze her Outlook for some time. I replied, "Oh, sorry that you're having a hard time. I was just following procedure, as per your request. I already sent them all, so nothing I can do." "Well, how many requests did you send?" 85. "What?" I then put my status to out to lunch. Have fun, lady. I'm getting a sandwich. Am I the jerk for kicking out my wife's parents for how they treated my mom? Last weekend, my mom and younger brother, who's 12, visited my wife and I. One of my sisters also lives in the same city as do my wife's parents. On Saturday, my wife invited my mom, brother, and sister, and my wife's parents to a dinner/get-together at our house, as our parents haven't seen each other since our son was born 6 years ago. I did not like the idea, but my wife was set on it. Our parents have never gotten along well. My in-laws are wealthy, whereas my mom has always been poor, and myself and my brother help support her now. At 51, my mom is also young compared to them, 70 plus. In the past, my in-laws have said some things about my mom that have upset me, but I've tried not to let it bother me. The night started badly when my wife asked my mom about her boyfriend, and her dad started asking her questions about him. Why didn't she invite him? What's his job? But then getting more invasive and essentially implying single moms shouldn't date and making remarks about her kids having different dads. I was already irate at this point, but my wife was able to deflect the conversation. Over the course of the night, they continued to make negative remarks that were directed at my mom. Even when my mother-in-law was congratulating my sister about getting into law school, she used it to backhand my mom by saying how impressive it was, considering where she came from. Mother-in-law also kept trying to police how my mom interacted with my son. A couple of times, she told my son off because he was playing with my mom despite the fact I was right there if he needed disciplining. I could see my mom was getting upset, and because she was staying with us, she couldn't even leave. I was able to talk to her privately and asked if she was all right. She said she was fine, but she seemed very distressed. My mom has a history of mental illness and has an anxiety disorder that often leads to her struggling in social situations. My mom silently went to our spare room without saying anything to anybody else. I decided to politely ask my in-laws to leave and explain to them that I wouldn't tolerate them speaking to my mom the way they had that night. My wife and father-in-law tried to talk to me about it, but I told them I didn't want to discuss it right now. I just wanted them to leave. I didn't want to talk because I was already very angry and didn't want to lose my temper. After they left, my wife and I started arguing. She tried to downplay how her parents were treating my mom and make it seem like I was reading too much into their words. She also argued that even if I wanted her parents to leave, I should have discussed it with her first, ignoring the fact I couldn't have done that without extracting her from the conversation with everyone, and I was disrespecting her by not getting her permission. She now thinks I'm treating her family badly when it was her parents that wouldn't stop disparaging my mom, and I know she noticed because she kept trying to intervene. Am I the jerk for kicking them out? You're not the jerk. If your wife didn't think her parents were doing anything wrong, why was she changing the subject or direction of the conversation when they were insulting your mother? Not the jerk. You were right to stand up for your mother and ask your in-laws to leave when they were making comments like this towards her. It's understandable that you were angry and didn't want to discuss it at the time, and your wife should have been more supportive of you in that matter. It's not disrespectful to her family to address their hurtful behavior towards your own family member. Your wife should have taken your concerns seriously and been more understanding of your feelings. It's important for partners to have each other's backs in situations like this. Neighbor complains about maintaining a hedge wall and then has to construct a wooden fence. This story happened about a decade ago when I was still a teenager and used to live in my parents' house. We are migrants and are on good terms with all of the neighbors since the 90s, but we do have a reputation in the neighborhood of frequently undertaking ambitious do-it-yourself home improvements and in an atypical manner to what locals expect. Our house is separated from the neighbors with a living hedge wall of cypress trees that grow on our property. At the time of this story, we already lived in the house for the better part of a decade with the same neighbors and the same cypress trees. One day out of the blue, one of the neighbors sees my mom working in the garden and starts complaining about the state of the living hedge on her side of the property. We usually trim the hedge only from our side and most of the top that we can reach. The neighbor complains and demands us to trim the hedge from their side as well. In her eyes, as the hedge wall is planted on our property, it's 100% our responsibility, and they're tired of maintaining it from their side. The altercation is very brief, as my mother surprisingly quickly replies, "Okay," and walks off grinning. Unbeknownst to the neighbor, we already were planning to cut down the hedges to the stump so that they could regrow anew, as the existing hedge was very old and was not particularly sightly. Previously, we postponed these works as we did not want to upset the neighbors, but this demand provided the perfect excuse. So the next day, while the neighbors are at work, we cut down all of the hedges surrounding our property to barely above ground. As we're finishing clearing up the trimmings, the neighbors come back from work and were shocked to discover the hedge practically gone. They looked around and realized that with the hedge wall gone, their whole backyard, kitchen, living room, and bedroom are on full display through the windows. The neighbor questions what have we done and why, as they would no longer have any privacy in their own home. My mom, without missing a beat, replies, "We fixed the problem. The hedge will no longer need trimming from your side," and goes back to clearing up. Within a week, the neighbors came back to us and asked for permission to construct a wooden fence on our property to protect their privacy. We happily agreed as long as they paid for it all, as we didn't mind waiting a couple of years for the hedge to regrow. Our privacy was much less impacted. They built the fence within the week, and it provided a good surface for some vine flowers to grow instead of the cypress trees that my mother had wanted to plant for a long time. Edit. People are concerned that the neighbors would be able to claim some of the land as theirs. This is not the case, as the property markers are still there, and nobody would ever move or tamper with them. Even if they did, this is in an EU country, and our land is marked based on specific coordinates and not some arbitrary lines such as a fence, no matter the situation. When the fence was being constructed, we made sure that this was the case. I should have originally specified that they effectively paid and constructed a fence for us that we legally own. My Karen mother-in-law installed a hidden camera in my bedroom. My husband, male 33, got into a car accident almost a month ago. He's been bedridden due to a back injury, and I've been his primary caregiver. The pressure has been too much from my mother-in-law. She keeps telling me to take care of him and be there for him constantly. She begged me to take time off work, and I did. Asked me to send her hourly updates about his condition the first 2 weeks. But when I didn't, she'd get mad and cause an issue. She visits every day, but doesn't do anything to help. Alternatively, she lists all the things I should or shouldn't do. The family keeps telling me she's just worried sick for her son, so I should try to stay calm. Days ago, she called to berate me about not replacing the sheets quickly. I had no idea how she found out, since my husband didn't call her. My sister-in-law called me to tell me that her mom installed a camera in the bedroom to see if I was taking proper care of her son. I was stunned. After searching the room, I found the camera. I called my mother-in-law and had a huge fight with her. She admitted it and said that she was just feeling concerned and wanted to make sure her son was being cared for, despite him calling her every day. I yelled at her, telling her that she's no longer allowed into my home after this. She lost it and went on a rant about how I'm stopping her from seeing her son and that not seeing him will literally make her sick herself. The family called me later to get me to back out of this decision, but I told them she breached my privacy and took advantage of the situation. She said I'm taking it too personally and that I can't blame a concerned mother for wanting to make sure her son is fine, especially since she listed things she thought I was doing wrong. I ended the conversation, but my husband is upset, telling me I'm being vindictive and that if his mom can't come, then he'll move there for her. We argued, then I went outside and he's been silent ever since. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Report it to the police. Let your husband go home to his mummy. Let his broke body self go live with his mama, and when he gets better, the locks should be changed. Mama's boys and crazy mama bears are horrible. Not the jerk. Let your husband move out then. That woman should be arrested. What kind of family is this? Get out of Dodge before you are entangled and have kids. Right? If he's threatening to move back to his mommy, just let him. Not the jerk. I have a feeling she never would have uninstalled it. Check the rest of your house and block anyone who doesn't respect your autonomy and privacy. Maybe change the Wi-Fi. Likely it's a Wi-Fi camera and it'll lose its connection if you change the password. Not the jerk. Let him move. Problem solved. Where's the conflict? The relationship is probably over, but have you not realized your husband knew about the camera? She installed it while he was in the room. Sister-in-law is using me as a free babysitter during our family vacation. My fiance and I were invited to go along on a trip to California for a week. I do not have my kids with me due to them being with their father and having wrestling tournaments that they cannot miss. Already spent hundreds on non-refundable tickets for them to participate. We drove here with his family, so I was already quite exhausted when getting to the resort after having listened to an 8-month-old scream practically the entire ride, 23 hours, but they insisted we go with them for the drive to swap off driving and sightseeing. We were crammed in this vehicle like sardines because on the floor was their family dogs, a 75-pound bull mastiff with her 2 puppies. So yes, dog crap was also present. They were quick to clean it up, but still, the car was putrid. When we get to the resort, I quickly noticed how I was seen as a built-in babysitter for my fiance's sister's 8-month-old daughter. Every time my future sister-in-law and her husband wanted to take a shower or swim or eat, or even if they just didn't feel like holding her, the kid was thrown in my lap basically, every single time. There are 5 other adults here, but they claimed that the kid only wanted me. I can't exactly argue it because at this point I had held the baby so much that she did put her arms out for me quite often, even in passing in the hallway. But it hit a point where I was getting tired. I was in the pool yesterday, and my future sister-in-law gets in and within 5 minutes passes the baby off to me. I hand her back maybe 10 minutes later, claiming I needed to use the restroom and stay indoors. Maybe 15 minutes later, they come inside and pass the baby off to me again, saying they need to go shower and ask me to bring the baby into them in 10 minutes. After I pass the baby off to them, I lock myself in the room and I've barely left since. My fiance comes in here a bit ago and tells me we are all going out to eat, and I told him I didn't feel like going and becoming a high chair to the baby while her parents ate. As it is, I've already held this kid more than enough and had several drinks spilled on me because of her octopus arms. He said I can't just sit up here to avoid holding the baby and that I'm wasting the trip all because I won't say no. Half the time they don't ask though. The baby is practically tossed to me. Am I the jerk? Not gonna lie, I would have flown home already. Not the jerk. My wife is furious that I rented a goat to mow my lawn. So I, 30 male, hate cutting grass. I can't stand it. The sound of the lawnmower makes me wish I could take my ears off, like Mr. Potato Head, and lock them in a box. It hurts my shoulder. I got injured in high school and it never healed right. And I might be the only person in the world who doesn't like the smell of cut grass and gasoline. This week was the very first week of the year that I would need to cut the grass. We live in a fairly warm state, and the HOA is very strict about it. We even have little flags at the front of the yard that the grass isn't allowed to get taller than. So the point is, the lawn needs to be mowed. I don't want to do it. My wife can't because the last time she mowed a lawn, she tipped it into a lake. Just so happens I know a guy who owns a goat, and I offer him $20 to bring it over to eat the grass for me. The goat eats the grass, we keep her away from the neighbors' yards, goat goes home. It was great, way better than mowing. Except now my wife is mad because some of the neighbors saw the goat, and they think it's hysterical that we had a goat doing yard work for us. She's upset that I made us look like weird people in front of all of her friends. I don't care if they think we're a little weird. I'm happy to be laughed at if it means saving myself from the headache-inducing sound of a lawnmower. But now she's making weird comments around the house about getting a horse to carry groceries or a chicken to clean the windows since there's no man in the house who can do it. I didn't expect her to react so negatively to a goat, but maybe I'm missing something. So, was I a jerk? Edit. The goat does not violate the HOA's BS policies. They have strict rules against raising farm animals. But if, say, the HOA's president's daughter wants a pony at her birthday party for a few hours, that's A-OK. Not the jerk. You pick the more environmentally friendly and adorable option. Your wife needs to stop caring what the neighbors think, and maybe be less extra too. My wife would be thrilled at the prospect of having a goat to mow the lawn once a week that she could go pet. I'd also bet his neighbors would probably be more interested in it when they find out how little he's paying to have it done. Am I the jerk for telling my husband he ruined my birthday again? Background. Today is my 28th birthday. I'm really into birthdays and holidays and believe in celebrating them to the max, and this is well known to everyone. I'm also the planner and the giver in not only my family, husband and kids, but my extended family, parents, siblings, friends, etc. So I'm the one that plans birthday get-togethers, gifts, travel, etc. I'm also a stay-at-home mom due to having a son with a complex medical and behavioral needs. I've been with him 24/7 for the last week as it's school break and he's extremely clingy and has behavioral problems due to mental illnesses. I also had an upper respiratory cold during this time, sore throat, fever, cough, runny nose, earache, but kept up with the mom duties nonetheless. My husband's birthday was last month, and as usual, I planned something for him. Weekend in a town a couple of hours away for us and our kids. For my birthday, I tell him I just want help with the kids, the house cleaned, a nap, and him to cook supper or take me out. Maybe a homemade gift from the kids and a cake. Yesterday, my husband starts complaining of a sore throat. I check his throat and it looks fine. No fever or other symptoms. He stays up all night playing video games. This morning, he says he's sick, but has no visible symptoms. No fever, no cough, no runny nose. Doesn't sound like someone with a cold. He says his throat hurts, but spent an hour on Xbox Live talking just fine. He naps all day because he says he's sick. I think it's because he stayed up until 4 a.m. playing video games. Meanwhile, I make my own cake, take care of the kids as usual, and do my usual chores. He didn't even tell me happy birthday. Finally, I decided to take the cake that I made with the kids to go to my parents' house to have supper there so I didn't have to cook. I'm pretty crabby at this point and don't say a word before we leave. He calls and asks why we left. I tell him because he ruined my birthday yet again, and I'm trying to salvage it at least a little, and I hung up. He called back and said I was overreacting. He's sick and I'm an adult. Birthdays aren't a big deal anymore after 21. So, am I the jerk for wanting one day to be the receiver instead of the giver? To celebrate myself? Not the jerk. He sounds inconsiderate and like he doesn't even like you. Absolutely. And I think I have something else to add. There may be some people who say, you don't know how sick he felt on the inside. I agree. He could have been miserable and needed to sleep. OP isn't a doctor. But none of that matters. I'm a guy. It would take an insane amount of pain for me to not put together something for my partner, especially if I knew it was important to her. It's like when you're exhausted and you stay up Christmas Eve to put together the presents so Santa can give your kids a magical day. You find the strength from within. Your wife gave birth, you can do this. OP, I feel sorry for you and hope you find someone who appreciates you. Honestly, he's also an adult. If you feel like you're getting sick, even if it's not visible, you take some NyQuil, get in bed at a reasonable time, and get some sleep, and take a stupid amount of vitamin C the next morning. He knew he had one day out of 365 to not mess things up for the sake of his partner, and he let his own selfish wants take priority. He can let himself be sick tomorrow. but today should have been for OP. And even if he was too sick that day, he should have said, "Happy birthday! I'm feeling awful today. I know it's your birthday and you deserve a break, and I'd love to give you the gift you asked for. Could I do that on this other day once I feel better?" It's not that hard. He just doesn't care. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. You did your job in communicating what you wanted. The fact that he did not show any concern for you shows a lot. Caregivers need care too. You did not ask for advice, but I want to suggest the following. Don't bother with his birthday. Make plans on your birthday with others who are willing to celebrate you. You do not have to share your plans with him. He's irrelevant. Birthdays are nothing to him, so your plans don't need to involve him in any way. Finally, a belated happy birthday. Parenting is a thankless job, but it sounds like you're rocking it. Who told you to do it this way? Being a travel nurse in the operating room has its benefits. The pay, the ability to take time off between assignments, and the bits of malicious compliance that make you feel warm and fuzzy inside. Been at this hospital for 2 months. I've worked with this particular surgeon a handful of times, but it's always been the same procedure, so I know what he wants for every step of the case. I'm about to start applying skin prep, another layer of antimicrobial security to prevent post-op infection, to where the surgeon is going to operate. He always wants the armpit, front shoulder, and chest of the specific site prepped. We're operating on the patient's right side. They're already asleep, and their right arm is padded and secured on an arm board. Before I start prepping, the scrub tech immediately says, "You need to undo their arm so that you can prep the whole board." I tell them, no, the surgeon wants it prepped this way. The arm stays on the board. This scrub tech hadn't done this case with this doctor in quite some time either, but they still decided to explain how the whole arm should be prepped for this procedure. I just ignored them. I begin my prep. Less than a minute later, the charge nurse comes in to log into a portable x-ray device. Us travelers don't often get credentials for those. And the scrub tech decides to ask the charge nurse how the surgical site should be prepped for this case, right in front of me. The charge nurse backs up the scrub tech and tells me I should be prepping the whole arm in addition to the sites that I mentioned earlier. I protested, but the doctor doesn't want that. He always wants the same areas prepped and draped accordingly. The charge nurse wasn't budging, and they demand I unfasten the arm and do it their way instead. I sigh and say okay. Cue malicious compliance. I prep the whole arm and am holding it in my sterile glove while waiting for the drapes and stockinette to be applied. All of a sudden, the most glorious thing happens. The surgeon arrives with the charge nurse still in the room. "Did you prep that whole arm?" he asked me. "Yep." "Why did you do that? You've been here 2 months. How do you not remember the prep by now?" "I was told to prep it this way." "By who? Who told you to do it this way?" The surgeon was upset due to this delay. As a traveler, I've learned to take the heat for making small mistakes, and I was contemplating taking the fall for this so that we could just move on with the rest of the day. But before I could speak, my charge nurse was actually humble and admitted that they had told me to prep the whole arm. The doc looked at me. "Did you tell them how I prefer it to be done?" "I did." The doc turned back to the charge nurse and proceeded to lambaste her for delaying the case. The scrub tech just stared blankly at the wall, but I didn't look or listen. I just stood there, enjoying the moment with the biggest grin under my mask. It's a nice day when someone else proves you were right. Needless to say, I didn't renew my contract at that hospital. Am I the jerk for leaving my husband alone with the kids for 2 days? I, 24 female, have 2 sets of twins. The first are 5-year-old sons, and the second set are 3-year-old daughters. My husband, who's 27, always complains that the house isn't up to his standards and that it's a mess, or that I sometimes put on frozen meals instead of cooking us a fresh dinner. It's super irritating because I'm expected to do everything just because I work from home. He thinks that I have an easier job than his, since his is physical labor. I can never do anything because when he has time off, all he wants to do is sleep and says he needs it because he's exhausted from work, or he wants to use his break to hang out with his friends. So basically, all the chores are usually thrown on me, and I've had enough of it, and it came to show when my friend called me to hang out and when I asked my husband to watch them so I could go. He went into a rant about how he's tired and he's been working all week, and the least I could do is watch the kids so that he could get some rest because I'm home all day with easy work. So I decided, after I put the kids to sleep that night, to leave a note saying that I'm going to have a night out with the girls, which ended up turning into a weekend out with the girls. When morning time came, he was calling and texting me nonstop, And when I answered, he was yelling at me and going off on me. And when my friends heard the conversation, they were shocked and hung up the phone for me and told me to mute it. I didn't have any plans to stay any longer than that night, but when my friends overheard how my husband was talking, they convinced me to stay and even told me they'd take me out to eat and planned a whole day for me. When I got back, the place was a complete and utter mess, like pile full of dishes, garbage all over the place, floors were sticky, the bathrooms were very dirty. My husband, of course, was angry and had a suitcase already packed. He barely said 2 words to me and just left and texted me saying he'll be staying at his mom's. Now I feel horrible because clearly he couldn't handle taking care of the kids for this long by himself, and I feel like a jerk, and I don't want this to ruin my marriage. Do you all think I'm a jerk for the way I acted? Not the jerk, but honey, ruin this marriage. You work full-time and take care of 4 kids under 6, cook and keep the house clean full-time? He expects to come home to a home-cooked meal, sleep when he's home, hang out with his friends? This is not a marriage, it's a joke. He's providing you 0 support and then whining when asked to help at all or when things aren't perfect. It doesn't matter if your job is easier or not. It's probably not easier, just different. He's not entitled to mooch off of you. Honey, forget this. You can do it on your own. OP is basically a single mom already. With extra work, it's amazing the amount of housework a single adult can create when they're not putting any effort into cleaning up after themselves. And demanding home-cooked meals? Working full-time, plus all of the housework, plus the at-home childcare for 4 kids? Yeesh, that's going to exhaust anyone. She can lighten the load by decreasing the number of people making a mess and requiring mental and emotional upkeep. Not the jerk. I don't know what your husband does, but you have 4 kids in that house. Unless he's springing for a maid and or a nanny, you're working 16 hours to his 8, assuming you both get 8 hours of sleep. I'll bet you don't. You may love him, but he clearly doesn't respect the effort you're putting in. Not the jerk, and I hope you divorce your sorry excuse for a husband. I'm divorced, and just about all of my friends are. I encourage as many women as possible to divorce their husbands because the truth is we can do a much better job of raising our kids without them. Take for instance something my husband used to do that drove me crazy. He always tried to get our son to play sports like football and baseball. He always said how important it is for boys to grow up competing with others to build camaraderie and get exercise and confidence. Keep in mind, at the time we were talking about a 9-year-old. Fortunately, I convinced my son early on that sports are honestly a total waste of time and there's so much more to life than throwing around a dumb ball. Now my son is 13 and he knows almost more about fashion than I do. His father can't stand it, but eventually he gave up trying to take him camping, hunting, fishing, and all that other useless crap that most of these idiots insist on teaching their sons. I even got the courts to reduce his custody because I proved that he basically forced my son to go hiking with him when all my son wanted to do was watch YouTube videos and talk to his friends online. Don't waste years of your life with a useless man-child living in your house like I did. Find a good lawyer and do it fast. Am I the jerk for expecting my boyfriend's parents to treat my daughter the same as his daughters? I, 37 female, have been dating Martin, 39, for what will be 2 years this June. I have a daughter, Scarlett, who's 10, and he has 2 daughters, Miley, who's 13, and Joanna, who's 12. I'm a single mother to Scarlett. Her father sends me maintenance each month, but has never been an active parent and has never met Scarlett. I also grew up in care, so I have no family or anything. Whereas Martin is divorced and shares custody with his ex-wife. Their custody agreement is very flexible with the girls sometimes staying with him or their mom longer, or often spending times with both parents together. It really bothered me a lot that he was still good friends with his ex-wife, and Martin said if I couldn't handle the fact he could co-parent well and be amicable with his ex, then he would end things. I like to think I got over my jealousy and that the girl's mother and I get on. Anyway, since we've been dating a while and have started discussing potentially living together, I think it's only really fair that Scarlett is more involved and treated the same as Martin's daughters by his parents. She met them for the first time a few months ago and has since seen them a few times, but she's treated virtually like a stranger. At Christmas, Miley and Joanna were spoiled rotten. They got money, gifts, toys, gift vouchers, and makeup. All they got Scarlett was an embroidered blanket thing Martin's mother spent weeks knitting, apparently, with her name on it, 2 gift vouchers, and a doll. They'll take Martin's girls for overnight sleepovers, but my kid is excluded. They say because they don't know her that well and are uncomfortable looking after her for now. They'll buy Joanna and Miley sweets or little trinkets and give them a couple of pounds here or there, every so often. But as for Scarlett, they might only give her one thing and that's it. It's not fair for Scarlett. The last straw was when his parents asked if we would all like to go to Disneyland Paris and Easter with them. They offered to pay for Martin, the girls, and said they could pay for part of mine and Scarlett's travel expenses, but that I'd have to pay the rest. I lost it, and I told Martin he needs to tell his parents to treat Scarlett like his girls are treated. It's not fair to her that she has to watch her sisters being spoiled and she isn't. He lashed out in return and said my parents have been nothing but accommodating to Scarlett by including her in things and getting her stuff at Christmas and so on. He said I'm incredibly selfish to expect his parents to treat my daughter, who they barely know, the same as their grandkids. He said that I'm bitter and jealous, and it's not like we're married or living together. He used the example of the blanket being a really sweet gift that shows how much his mother cares. He also said it's perfectly reasonable for his parents to expect me to pay for my own kid to go to Disney, and that my parents don't need to pay anything at all for us. He also said I'm raising my daughter to not learn the value of the word no, and that she can just be expected to get whatever she wants. He also said that Joanna and Miley are not Scarlett's sisters. It's never been emphasized they were, and they do not view Scarlett as that. He said that I need to get my butt in gear and realize nothing is being done to discriminate against or exclude Scarlett. Am I the jerk? Edit. I view Joanna and Miley as bonus daughters, hence why Scarlett calls them her sisters. Joanna and Miley do not view me as a mother figure in any way, only as Dad's girlfriend. It really hurts, but I don't think I'm being pushy or anything. I just think of us as a blended family unit, whereas Joanna and Miley have said I'm just the woman their dad is dating, and Scarlett is nothing to them family-wise. I've tried to get them to involve her whenever they're doing stuff, and they outright refuse, so they say that they are only tolerating her. Martin has chewed me out about this before, claiming I'm trying to insert my daughter in the friendship groups and activities of his daughters, and it greatly upsets Scarlett because she just wants to be included. She doesn't have a lot of friends, and I want Joanna and Miley to be her friends. I have no family, and Scarlett's father's family isn't involved. I've always tried my best to spoil her myself, but it seems only fair since we're part of Martin's family now that she's treated the same as Joanna and Miley. You're the jerk. It sounds like they're trying. They're giving her thoughtful gifts and offering to help pay for you and Scarlett to go to Disney. That's pretty generous considering you're not married, and they only met Scarlett a few months ago. Frankly, you sound ungrateful and grabby, demanding that they treat her like an instant grandchild and lavish gifts upon her. It's also rather telling that you say their grandkids were spoiled rotten by their grandparents at Christmas. It reeks of jealousy and makes me wonder why you want someone to spoil your daughter rotten too. Exactly. Also to add that if you keep treating your boyfriend like this, you probably won't be around that much longer anyway. You're the jerk. To be fair, OP has never experienced a real family of her own. OP, it genuinely sounds like you don't know what it's like to be in a family that is more than just you and your daughter. Now you're dating someone who has a wonderful family life of his own, and you want that so badly that you're not taking the proper steps to get there. You and your boyfriend don't even live together, and you aren't married. You're trying to insert yourself and your daughter as though you're all family, but you aren't yet. I absolutely understand wanting that family life for yourself and your daughter, but this is not the way to get it. It's too soon. His parents are being generous towards your daughter while still respecting the fact that she isn't actually their granddaughter. She isn't even a step-granddaughter yet. Imagine how your daughter will feel if they jumped in and treated her as they treat their granddaughters and then you and Martin broke up. The loss for your daughter would be devastating. Your boyfriend has a wonderful family and you owe him an apology. You need to explain to him that you simply haven't ever had that experience and you realize now that you've been unfair and overzealous in your desire to be part of what he has, then back off. I won't call anybody a jerk because I don't think it's your fault that you don't know how to properly make a family, but you need to change your approach in a big way before this family becomes part of your past. You're the jerk. I can't imagine an adult saying, all they got my daughter was a super thoughtful knit blanket and 3 other gifts. That's a lot. They absolutely don't have to pay anything for your trip to Disneyland. What is your deal? Are you using Martin and his family for their wealth? I hope your daughter is more grateful than you are. You don't upload until I tell you to upload. Alrighty then. Going to try to be as vague as I can since I still work here. So this happened many years ago, and the main character is actually someone else. But most of the staff knew the details of what happened. So first some background. This company has a production process, and there are cycles of this process throughout the shift. At the end of each cycle, you do an upload, not the actual thing. This upload has to be coordinated across multiple work teams, and the person who does it has plenty of other duties, but this is one of the most important ones. Let's call this person's job title Upload Operator, and I'll call the person Rockstar. If this isn't done correctly, it can really slow down or even stop production. So the Upload Operator is typically pretty tenured and on the trajectory of being promoted. At this company, when we get new members of management, either external or internal, from a non-production role, it's not unusual for them to go through a phase I personally like to refer to as knowing just enough to be dangerous, or dangerous phase for short. We had a new manager join the company. Let's call him Beavis. And they were assigned to night shift, which had become quite reliant on Rockstar in the interim. So Beavis went through a humble phase initially, and everyone really liked them and thought they would do well. Now, Beavis had actually taken a step or two down from their previous role at another company, wanting to do something less stressful. I only mention this because it seemed to fuel the hubris that was ultimately Beavis' demise. So once Beavis reaches the dangerous phase, the change from humble newbie to overcompetent jackwagon was jarringly sudden. One evening, Rockstar is doing what they do, and one work team was struggling to be ready for the upload. Now, this happens sometimes, but it's one of the only teams that doesn't necessarily stop production if they don't upload on time. Nevertheless, Beavis freaks out on Rockstar for uploading without them, and as Rockstar is trying to explain that we had to upload, Beavis tells them that they don't upload until Beavis tells them to upload. Period. End of discussion. Do you understand me? Cue malicious compliance. The rest of the shift, Beavis is paying zero attention to the operation. Not sure why they thought that was a good idea after such a contentious exchange, but here we are. All night long, team leads were calling Rockstar, asking what was going on and why we hadn't uploaded so we could go on to the next cycle. Rockstar just kept saying, "I'm waiting for Beavis to let me know we can upload." And all night long, Beavis was blissfully unaware of the crap storm he had initiated. Towards the end of the night, Beavis finally decides to take a look at some operational dashboards and realizes something is really wrong. Now, this situation might have resulted in Rockstar getting in trouble, possibly even losing their job, if not for the bonehead decision that Beavis makes once they've realized what had happened. They shut down the shift and went home without notifying anyone of the debacle or telling the night shift employees that they would need to come in the next day to finish the week's work that didn't get done because of him. When the day shift came in and were told they would have to come in on a weekend, there was a lot of backlash. Rockstar was ultimately told don't ever do that again, but was also immediately promoted to Beavis' position when Beavis was terminated post-haste. Security tells me no. Okay, it's no. I work for a subsidiary of a Fortune 500 as a manager of a dev team. I have 7 people under me. Think L3 people, very knowledgeable and driven to solve issues. We're all remote. I'm lucky my team is mostly great and we achieve the objectives that we're given. One day, the new security manager decides that devs are not allowed to be administrators of their laptops. He writes a new company policy for it. It's a crap show for us. It means my team can't work on some applications that require administrative rights. Also, as devs know, some bugs need my guys to install, deinstall, and reinstall the applications many times to make it work, changing only a few parameters each time. So I try to push back, saying it might impact our service level agreements, but the security manager doesn't want to understand and just sends me emails with "no" in bold caps. His boss is out right now for health reasons, so I can't escalate as I would have. The only way to make my guys work is that we need someone with the admin rights to unlock them when they need it. That admin is part of the support center. So, cue malicious compliance. I ask my team to create a ticket each time. They're not happy about it, of course. The support center manager isn't happy either because we create a lot of tickets and his team had been understaffed for a while. I also tell all the other managers in my department to do the same, and even though they create a lot less tickets than my team, it helps. Of course, this is my plan. If my team is unhappy, other people in the company are going to be too. So pressure piles up. The support center manager is unhappy. His boss saw the number increases too, so he's unhappy too. He talks to my boss, but hey, I have emails from the security manager. The support center manager asks me to be reasonable and asks for a number of hours per week. I'm a team player, of course, so yes, I want to help him. I ask for 20 hours a week for a guy from his team to sit around waiting for my team to need him, unlock their install, and then wait some more. I'm guessing the admin is pretty happy about it because it's way less pressure than his normal job, and there's not much to do but type in an admin password once in a while. It helps reduce, or not increase, the number of tickets, but the support center has less people, so they resolve tickets less than before. Then comes the climax. One application has a critical bug outside of the hours of support center guy, so I tell them, as per my agreement with the support center manager and obeying the security manager, my team can't work on it yet. We'll have to wait until the next day. It's a healthcare product, so it means a lot of our customers are going to be upset about it. Can't say too much, don't want to be found. Of course, I'm a reasonable guy. The support center manager is too, so we find someone with admin rights and put my guys to work. The resolution of the ticket takes much longer than usual to solve because of all the back and forth between the admin and my team. During the post-mortem, it's found that the new security policy was the main delaying cause. Every member of my team told the post-mortem woman that, as I did. I have all the emails I sent to the security manager highlighting the risks of this new policy and him saying he didn't care for it. I sent that to the post-mortem as well and let her find her way into the politics. 3 months later, the security manager doesn't work for us anymore, and most members of my team, but not all, have admin rights on their machine. I learned that the support center manager had made his mission in life to complain about the security manager to everyone who would listen and to have him fired. And the support center manager knows a lot of people in the company. His director agreed with him, and with the post-mortem woman, or her boss, not sure at that point, they convinced the VP to fire the security manager even before the security director came back from his health issue. My fiance demands I set up a trust fund for her kids. I'm 46, male. My fiance is 45, female, and my ex-wife is 42. My ex-wife and I are on great terms, and throughout and after our marriage, we've been creating a trust fund for our boys, who are 19 and 16, and they can do what they want with it when they're 24. I have my company that has skyrocketed since I started it over 25 years ago due to the need for it in the technological world, and it is branched throughout the US, so our boys and my ex-wife have been very well off, and they'll all be taken care of if I pass since I don't plan on changing my will yet. Everything goes to them. Our sons are very much interested in taking over the company, and they're both working part-time in the lower jobs to be able to get a feel for the company. The oldest is currently getting his degree, while my youngest is working hard in private school. Now my fiance also has 2 boys from her last marriage, who are 20 and 18, and she has never been on good terms with her ex. She was only married to him for about 4 years and then became a single mother working various jobs, and her boys usually stayed with her mom. We got engaged about 3 years ago, and lockdown came and pushed the wedding back. Well, her oldest has been having some disagreements with the law and dropped out of community college and is currently working part-time at a store. And her youngest has been really struggling with school since lockdown and seems to be on something. My oldest son has recently been staying at our guest house for the last 3 days and has been telling great stories of his uni and how much he enjoys his classes and experience, and he can't wait to start working side by side with me. After he went to bed for the night, my fiance pulled me aside and asked if I could create a fund for her boys like I have for mine. I told her no, that I posted bail for her oldest, and he doesn't even seem to have a plan for his life. And her youngest said he was never going to college because he hates school and he's going to be a Marine. She got upset with me, saying that she wasn't able to provide for them like I have for my boys, and they were given different tools for success and it wasn't fair, that they'll be my stepsons and I need to step up to the plate. I told her they're adults now, and they're more than welcome to get a job at my company and we can go from there. But she got even more upset and told me I was a jerk for not taking care of them and hasn't talked to me since. So Reddit, am I the jerk? Edit. I don't plan on changing my will until I'm married, then I'll add my fiance. She has also signed a prenup too. Yes, prenup and will are both ironclad and bulletproof. They've been reviewed countless times by 3 different attorneys, multiple paralegals, and other workers too. Also, I met her sons for the first time when we were dating for 8 months, and that was a very quick meet and greet lunch. Her kids lived with their grandma throughout the rest of our relationship and even during our engagement. I've only met them a few other times that I could spare because I was very busy then with work and my own sons' lives, and then lockdown hit and things just got worse. So maybe seeing them 6 times total. and those were usually just a quick hello or a dinner here and there. I had no part in raising them, just helping on bail because their mom couldn't afford it and the tuition. Her youngest son living with us is the most time I've ever seen him, and it's barely been a year at most. Her eldest lived with us for a month or two before she kicked him out. Edit 2. So my fiance, now life partner / girlfriend, and I have had a discussion, and we're going to couples counseling now, and I've made the choice that we are not getting married anymore. We will be life partners, but nothing legally binding. She was very upset as she really wanted to be married, but she respected my decision. Also, we have also agreed that her son's welfare are her own personal responsibility, and I will split the cost with her on half of whatever she wants to help them with financially. She has her own job and doesn't want to leave it. But if they want to work for the company, then that's a different discussion with both parties. Thank you all for your advice. Not the jerk. I ain't saying she a gold digger. But in all seriousness, if they get their crap together, help them with school or with a job in the company, but no need for a trust fund. That free money with no accountability for adults you owe nothing to. This is my thought process too. Helping with the cost of tuition or assisting in obtaining a low-level position is one thing. A trust fund is another. Not the jerk. I wouldn't necessarily say gold digger, but asking a lot for sure. Then getting upset when OP says no made her look even worse. Both of her kids are adults and seem to be behind a bit in life, but a job at the company sounds like a good compromise. OP is reacting and responding appropriately in this situation. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.